I showed up to my law school graduation party, only for the venue to be closed. I called my wife. She said, "You don't deserve to be celebrated. So no party for you." Then I saw my wife's post on her social media, partying and kissing her boss. So I walked away, quietly canceled every payment, and sold my 90% stake in her boss's company, $157 million worth. Minutes later, my phone lit up with 154 missed calls, and someone showed up at my door. You know that feeling when you're riding high on life, thinking you've got everything figured out, and then reality decides to dropkick you right in the teeth? Yeah, well, welcome to my Tuesday night in downtown Manhattan, where I'm standing outside the Meridian Hotel like some kind of abandoned tourist who missed the last bus home. I adjust my tie, the expensive Italian silk one that Clarissa picked out because it makes your eyes pop, darling, and check my watch again. 7:30 p.m. sharp, just like we planned. Just like we've been planning for 3 goddamn months. This was supposed to be my night. My law school graduation party. The culmination of 3 years of legal torture, caffeine addiction, and slowly watching my social life die a painful death in the bowels of Columbia's law library. But here's the thing about expectations. They're basically just disappointment wearing a fancy suit. The hotel's valet stand sits empty, which should have been my first red flag. Usually, this place is crawling with guys in burgundy uniforms who treat your car keys like they're handling the crown jewels. Tonight, nothing. Just a lonely podium and a sign that says valet returns at 11 p.m. Weird, but hey, maybe they're just running behind. I walk up to the ballroom entrance, and that's when the second red flag starts waving like it's trying to flag down a taxi in rush hour. The doors, those massive oak and brass beauties that probably cost more than my first semester's tuition, are chained shut, not locked. Chained, like someone's trying to keep zombies in, or in this case, apparently trying to keep me out. The lights inside are off, which is particularly fascinating considering we booked this joint for 200 people and dropped enough cash to fund a small country's defense budget. I press my face against the glass like some kind of desperate window shopper, cupping my hands to block out the street lights. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No tables with crisp white linens. No ice sculptures shaped like gavels. No string quartet tuning up in the corner. Just darkness and the faint smell of industrial cleaning products. What the hell is going on here? I pull out my phone and scroll to Clarissa's contact. Her picture smiles back at me. That perfect headshot from when she made partner track at Henderson and Associates. All pearl earrings and confidence that could power a small city. I hit call and listen to it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, just when I'm about to hang up and assume she's dealing with some last-minute party crisis, she picks up. "Hello, Michael." Her voice comes through crystal clear, but there's something underneath it that makes my stomach drop like I just stepped off a cliff. In the background, I can hear what sounds like a party in full swing. Laughter, clinking glasses, that particular buzz of conversation that happens when people are 3 drinks in and feeling philosophical about life. "Clarissa, where are you?" "I'm at the hotel, but the doors are chained shut and there's no party for you." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Simple, direct, devastating. She says it like she's telling me the weather forecast, except instead of partly cloudy with a chance of rain, it's completely screwed with a 100% chance of humiliation. "What do you mean there's no party for me? We planned this together. We sent invitations. You don't deserve to be celebrated." And there it is. The gut punch that leaves me doubled over on a Manhattan sidewalk while people in expensive coats walk past like my world isn't currently imploding. Her voice is dripping with this disdain that I've never heard before, like she's been storing it up for months and finally found the perfect moment to unleash it. I'm frozen, literally frozen, standing on West 44th Street while the city rushes past in its usual New York rhythm. Taxis honk, people shout into their phones, someone's playing saxophone badly in the distance, and here I am, processing the fact that my wife, just told me I don't deserve to be celebrated for graduating law school. Not just any law school, mind you, but Columbia Law, where I busted my ass for 3 years, where I gave up weekends and sleep and any semblance of a normal social life to make something of myself. The years of study flashed through my mind like some cruel highlight reel. All those nights in the library until they kicked me out at midnight. The sacrifices, skipping dinners with friends, missing family gatherings, turning down job opportunities that would have paid well but might have interfered with my studies. The long nights with case law and legal briefs spread across our kitchen table while Clarissa complained about the mess. Every exam I stressed over, every paper I rewrote until my eyes bled, every moment I chose my future over immediate gratification. And apparently, none of it means anything to her. I want to say something clever, something cutting that would make her realize how absolutely insane this is, but my brain has apparently decided to take a vacation right when I need it most. So I just stand there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to her party continue in the background while my own celebration sits behind chained doors. Clarissa, I don't understand what's. But she's already hung up. The line goes dead, leaving me with nothing but the dial tone and the sound of my own rapid breathing. This is when most people would probably call an Uber and head home to drink themselves into a stupor while watching Netflix and questioning their life choices. But me? I do what any self-respecting millennial does when faced with emotional devastation. I open Instagram. Big mistake. Huge. The first thing that pops up in my feed is a post from Clarissa's account, and I swear my heart actually stops beating for a solid 10 seconds. There she is, looking absolutely stunning in that champagne-colored dress. The one I bought her from Bergdorf Goodman for $800 because she said she wanted to look perfect for our special night. She's glowing, radiant, like she's living her absolute best life. And she's kissing Martin Cross. Not a friendly peck on the cheek. Not an innocent congratulations hug. She's full-on making out with her boss like they're starring in some kind of romantic movie. And the caption underneath makes me want to throw my phone into traffic. Thank you for sponsoring my future. Two hearts sparkles #blessed #new beginnings. My chest tightens like someone's wrapping rubber bands around my lungs. I read the caption again, because surely I misunderstood. Sponsoring her future? Martin Cross, the guy who couldn't find his way out of a paper bag without GPS, is sponsoring her future? The comments are flowing in fast and furious. Heart emojis, congratulations, people I thought were my friends posting things like, so happy for you both, and about time. About time? How long has this been going on? I scroll through more of her recent posts, my thumb moving faster as the pieces start falling into place. Photos from work events that I now realize were dates. Business dinners, where she's looking at Martin like he hung the moon and personally installed all the stars. Networking opportunities that seem to involve an awful lot of intimate candlelit settings. I've been erased, not just from tonight's party, but from my own success story. 3 years of law school, and somehow I've become a footnote in someone else's narrative. The husband who got in the way. The dead weight that needed to be cut loose so she could soar to new heights with her visionary boss. Standing on that sidewalk, still holding my phone like it might explode, I realized something that cuts deeper than anything she said on the phone. I've been living a lie. Not just for tonight, not just for the past few months, but possibly for years. And the worst part? Everyone else apparently knew it except me. The city keeps moving around me, completely indifferent to the fact that my marriage, my celebration, and apparently my entire understanding of reality just went up in flames. But something else is starting to build in my chest, something that's pushing past the shock and hurt and settling into something much more dangerous. Determination. You know what they say about the best-laid plans of mice and men? Well, turns out the mice might actually have their shit together better than I thought, because at least they don't get blindsided by their own wives on what should have been the biggest night of their lives. I make it back to my apartment in record time, though I honestly couldn't tell you how I got here. 1 minute I'm standing on West 44th Street watching my marriage burn down in real time via Instagram. And the next I'm fumbling with my keys like some kind of drunk freshman who can't figure out which end goes in the lock. The muscle memory of 3 years of late-night library sessions apparently extends to finding my way home while in a state of complete emotional devastation. Who knew? The apartment feels different when I walk in. Everything looks exactly the same. Clarissa's throw pillows are still perfectly arranged on the couch. Her organic kale chips are still cluttering up the kitchen counter. Her collection of inspirational coffee table books about women who changed the world are still strategically placed to impress dinner guests. But something's fundamentally shifted. It's like walking into a museum exhibit titled The Life You Thought You Had, sponsored by denial and stupidity. First things first, I need a drink. Not just any drink, but the good stuff. The 18-year-old Macallan that I've been saving for tonight's celebration. Ironic, considering tonight's celebration turned out to be about as real as Santa Claus and functional government. I pour myself 3 fingers of liquid gold and head straight for my home office, the one room in this place that's entirely mine. Here's the thing about being married to someone who thinks organization is a personality disorder. You learn to keep your important stuff locked down tight. While Clarissa's idea of filing involves shoving receipts into whatever drawer happens to be closest, I've got a system that would make the IRS weep with joy. I slide open the bottom drawer of my mahogany desk, the one with the lock that Clarissa always complained about because, what are you hiding in there? State secrets. And pull out my pride and joy, a black leather binder that cost more than most people spend on groceries in a month. Inside this bad boy lies 3 years of meticulous record-keeping that would make an accountant's heart sing opera. See, here's what nobody tells you about law school. They teach you to document everything. Every transaction, every conversation, every promise made over dinner and wine. It becomes second nature, like breathing or checking your phone every 30 seconds. And when you're married to someone whose relationship with financial responsibility is about as stable as a house of cards in a tornado, documentation isn't just helpful, it's survival. I flip open the binder and take a long, satisfying sip of scotch. Page 1, rent receipts. Every single month for the past 3 years, documented in pristine detail. Clarissa's contribution to our cozy 2-bedroom on the Upper West Side? A big fat 0. Apparently, her salary as a junior associate at Henderson & Associates was barely enough to cover her professional wardrobe and networking expenses, which, in normal people speak, translates to, I spend all my money on designer shoes and overpriced salads. Page 2 through 15, tuition invoices. Columbia Law isn't exactly known for being budget-friendly. We're talking about the kind of money that could buy a decent house in most parts of the country. And guess whose name is on every single payment? That's right, yours truly. Clarissa insisted it was an investment in our future and promised to make it up to me once she made partner. Funny how those promises seem a lot less solid when your wife is tongue-wrestling her boss on social media. But wait, it gets better. Pages 16 through 25, her networking trips. Oh, those magical networking trips that were supposedly essential for her career development. Weekend conferences in Miami, legal seminars in California, professional development workshops in Vegas. Because nothing says serious legal professional like a 3-day conference at the Bellagio, right? I pull out my calculator. Old school. Baby, none of this iPhone nonsense when you're dealing with real money. And start adding up the damage. Flights, hotels, rental cars, client dinners that cost more than some people's monthly salary. The grand total makes me pour another drink. Then I flip to the section that's about to become very, very relevant. Martin Cross and the birth of Cross and Partners. 18 months ago, Clarissa came home from work with tears in her eyes and a story that would have made Shakespeare weep. Poor Martin, her brilliant boss, had this amazing vision for starting his own firm. He had the legal expertise, the client relationships, the sheer entrepreneurial spirit to make it happen. There was just one tiny little problem. He was broke as a joke. He needs startup capital, she'd said, curling up next to me on the couch with that look that usually preceded expensive requests. This could be huge for both of us. He's promised me senior associate, maybe even junior partner if the firm takes off. The amount he needed? $750,000. Not exactly pocket change, even for someone who'd been socking away money since his undergrad days. But Clarissa painted such a beautiful picture. Martin's legal brilliance, the untapped market for boutique corporate law, the potential returns that could set us up for life. So I did what any loving, supportive husband would do. I wrote the check. But here's where my law school training really paid off. I didn't just hand over $750,000 like some kind of trust fund kid with more money than sense. Oh no, I structured it properly. I flipped to page 32, where I've got copies of every single document related to the Cross and Partners deal. Partnership agreements, incorporation papers, stock certificates, the whole 9 yards. And right there, in beautiful black and white legalese, is the truth that's about to make Martin's day very, very interesting. I own 90% of Cross and Partners. That's right, 90%. Martin got his shiny CEO title and his corner office with the view of Central Park, but legally speaking, he's my employee, has been from day one. I let him strut around like he was some kind of legal visionary building an empire, but the reality is he's been playing dress-up in a company I own. The current valuation, according to their latest quarterly report that I definitely shouldn't have access to, but somehow do, $174 million. My 90% stake? $157 million. I lean back in my chair and laugh. Actually laugh out loud, which probably makes me look like some kind of supervillain, but I honestly don't give a damn. Clarissa thinks she can humiliate me, kiss her boss in public, and erase me from my own success story. She thinks she can upgrade from me to Martin Cross, the brilliant CEO who's going to sponsor her future. She has absolutely no idea that she's been standing on foundations I built with my own 2 hands and my own bank account. Martin Cross, the visionary entrepreneur? More like Martin Cross, the well-dressed middle manager who's been living in a house of cards that I can collapse with a phone call. I take another sip of scotch and start planning my next move. Because if Clarissa wants to play games, I'm about to show her how the game is really played. And the first rule of any good game? Know who actually owns the board. There's something oddly therapeutic about destroying someone's life while sipping 18-year-old scotch in your pajamas. I'm talking serious therapeutic value here, like the kind of zen that expensive spa treatments promise but never deliver. Who knew that revenge could be so damn relaxing? It's 3 a.m., and I'm wide awake, laptop glowing in the dark like some kind of digital campfire. Sleep is for people who haven't just discovered that their entire marriage was basically a very expensive performance art piece titled, How to Fund Your Own Humiliation. Me? I've got work to do. I start small, because I'm not a monster. Well, okay, maybe I am, but I'm a methodical monster with excellent organizational skills and a law degree that's apparently worth something after all. First up, the venue payment for tonight's party that never was. The Meridian Hotel charged me $8,000 for the ballroom rental, not including the premium bar package, the upgraded sound system, and the special lighting that was supposed to make everyone look like they were glowing with success. I pull up the contract on my laptop, and there it is in beautiful legal language. Payment may be reversed in cases of breach of contract or failure to provide agreed-upon services. Funny thing about contracts, they work both ways. They didn't provide the venue as agreed, so I'm not providing the payment as agreed. I log into my banking app and initiate a chargeback dispute. $8,000 back in my account, just like that. The best part? The hotel's going to have to explain to Clarissa why her party venue suddenly got repoed in the middle of the night. Next, the caterers. These guys were supposed to be the creme de la creme, the kind of culinary artists who charge $300 a head and somehow make it seem reasonable. Clarissa specifically requested them because they catered some fancy partner event at her firm, and she wanted to make a statement. Well, congratulations, honey. You definitely made a statement. Just not the one you were planning. I find their invoice in my email, another $5,000 for artisanal canapes and elevated comfort cuisine, whatever the hell that means. Probably fancy words for tiny sandwiches and overpriced mac and cheese. The payment was scheduled to process tomorrow morning, but guess what? Tomorrow morning, their account is going to get a very disappointing message about insufficient funds. The jazz trio gets the same treatment. Clarissa insisted we needed live music because a playlist would be tacky and not befitting the significance of the occasion. These 3 guys in bow ties were going to cost us $1,500 to play background music that nobody would remember anyway. Well, joke's on them. They can take their saxophones and their attitude and find another gig. But I'm just getting warmed up. This is like opening moves in chess, except instead of pawns, I'm moving credit cards and bank accounts around the board. I log into our joint credit card account, the American Express Black card that Clarissa loves to flash around like it's some kind of status symbol. She uses this thing for everything. Her daily Starbucks addiction, her weekly mani-pedi appointments, her monthly shopping sprees at boutiques with names I can't pronounce. The card that makes her feel like she's living her best life. Account privileges, revoked. Just like that, her little piece of plastic becomes about as useful as a chocolate teapot. Next up, her Uber account, which is linked to my credit card because it's just so convenient, darling. Convenient for her, expensive for me. Every ride to and from her office, every late-night trip to meet clients, who apparently include her boss's lips. Every journey to those mysterious networking events, all funded by yours truly. Account payment method, removed. Seamless, her food delivery app of choice because cooking is apparently beneath someone of her caliber. Payment declined. That boutique yoga studio where she practices mindfulness for $120 a session, membership suspended. Her subscription to that high-end meditation app that was supposed to help her find inner peace, but apparently just helped her find inner justification for cheating, canceled. I'm on a roll now, fingers flying across the keyboard like I'm conducting some kind of digital orchestra of destruction. Every automatic payment, every subscription, every little convenience that made her life smooth and effortless, gone. Then I get to the big one. The joint account we set up specifically for her law school expenses. Even after she graduated, we kept it open for career development opportunities and continuing education. In reality, it became her personal slush fund for anything she could loosely categorize as professional development. Designer suits? Professional development. Expensive dinners with clients? Professional development. Weekend trips to conferences that looked suspiciously like vacations? You guessed it, professional development. Current balance. $43,000. In about 30 seconds, that balance is going to become $0 because I'm closing the account and transferring everything back to my primary checking. Let's see how much professional development she can afford on her own dime. But the piece de resistance, the main event, the grand finale that's going to make tonight feel like a gentle warm-up? Cross and Partners. I pull up the contact information for Global Corp Legal Holdings, one of those massive international law firms that treats smaller firms like appetizers at a corporate buffet. They've been circling Cross and Partners for months, making subtle inquiries about acquisition possibilities. Martin always brushed them off with that smug confidence of his, acting like he was too good for their offers. Well, Martin doesn't get to make those decisions. I do. I draft an email to their acquisitions team, professional and straightforward. I am the majority stakeholder of Cross and Partners, 90% ownership, and am interested in discussing immediate acquisition opportunities. Please contact me at your earliest convenience regarding current market valuations and terms. I hit send before I can second-guess myself. Then I call their 24-hour deal hotline, because apparently billion-dollar law firms never sleep. And within 10 minutes, I'm on a conference call with 3 senior partners who sound like they just won the lottery. They've been watching Cross and Partners' growth. They know exactly what the firm is worth, and they're ready to move fast. The offer comes back within an hour, $195 million for my 90% stake. Clean purchase, immediate transfer, no extended negotiations. My hands hover over the laptop keys one last time, and I think about Clarissa in that champagne dress, kissing Martin under those cruel Instagram lights. I think about her voice on the phone telling me I don't deserve to be celebrated. I think about 3 years of funding her dreams while she planned her exit strategy. Then I click accept. Just like that, I've sold my stake in Cross and Partners to a global powerhouse that's going to walk in Monday morning with their own plans, their own management structure, and their own ideas about who deserves corner offices. Martin Cross, visionary CEO and sponsor of Clarissa's future? By Monday afternoon, he's going to be Martin Cross, unemployed middle manager wondering what the hell just happened to his empire. I close the laptop, finish my scotch, and finally feel ready for sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day. You know that moment in disaster movies when the earthquake hits and everyone's running around screaming while buildings collapse in slow motion? Well, apparently I'm the earthquake, and my phone is ground zero for the aftermath. I wake up at exactly 9:47 a.m., which is later than I've slept in about 3 years. Law school will train you to function on 4 hours of sleep and pure caffeine. But revenge? Revenge is surprisingly exhausting work. Who knew that systematically dismantling someone's life could be such a workout? My first clue that the world has officially gone sideways comes before I even open my eyes. My phone is buzzing like an angry wasp trapped in a mason jar, that continuous vibration that means either someone died or someone's about to kill me. Given last night's activities, I'm betting on the latter. I roll over and grab the phone, squinting at the screen through morning light that feels way too bright for this level of drama. The notification count makes me blink twice to make sure I'm not hallucinating. 154 missed calls. 154. That's not a phone number. That's a small city's worth of panic compressed into digital format. Most of them are from Clarissa, obviously. Her contact photo. That perfect professional headshot that now looks like a mug shot from my new perspective has been lighting up my screen since about 6 a.m. The timestamps show a progression that would be hilarious if it wasn't so pathetic. Every 2 minutes from 6 to 7, every 5 minutes from 7 to 8, then a desperate barrage around 8:30 that suggests she finally figured out that her fancy plastic wasn't working anymore. But it's the text messages that really tell the story. Clarissa's emotional journey from confusion to fury to desperation, all laid out in a beautiful timeline of lowercase letters and increasingly frantic punctuation. 6:23 a.m. My card isn't working at Starbucks? Can you call me? 6:31 a.m. Seriously, Michael, what's going on with the Amex? 7:15 a.m. The yoga studio says my membership is suspended. This is ridiculous. 7:42 a.m. Call me back right now. 8:18 a.m. What did you do to our accounts? This isn't funny. 8:33 a.m. You're being childish and petty. Fix this immediately. 9:15 a.m. Michael, I swear to God, if you don't call me back, I'm coming over there. The evolution is beautiful, really. She starts off assuming it's some kind of technical glitch, like the universe just randomly decided to make her life inconvenient. Then comes the dawning realization that this might be intentional, followed by indignation that I would dare interfere with her perfectly curated lifestyle. Finally, we get to the threats, which is always where Clarissa lands when she doesn't get her way immediately. But Clarissa's meltdown is just the opening act. The real entertainment comes from Martin's messages, which are like watching a supposedly sophisticated businessman slowly realize he's been playing chess with a pigeon this whole time. His texts are way more professional than Clarissa's, probably because he's trying to maintain some dignity while his world burns down around him. But you can practically smell the panic through the screen. 7:45 a.m. Michael, we need to discuss some urgent matters regarding Cross and Partners. Please call me at your earliest convenience. 8:30 a.m. There seems to be some confusion regarding company ownership and recent communications with outside parties. This requires immediate clarification. 9:10 a.m. Michael, I'm not sure what's happening, but we have serious problems. Payroll is disrupted and vendors are asking questions. Call me now. I pour myself a cup of coffee, the good stuff, not the cheap grocery store blend, and scroll through the rest of the carnage. My phone is like a greatest hits compilation of people whose lives I apparently control more than they realized. The venue coordinator from the Meridian Hotel has left 3 increasingly frantic voicemails. In the first one, she's politely professional, asking about some irregularities with payment processing. By the third message, she sounds like she's been crying, something about the bride causing a scene in the lobby at midnight and security having to escort people out when the bar tab came back declined. The caterers sent an email with the subject line, urgent, payment declined, event tomorrow, which is pretty funny considering the event was yesterday and consisted of nothing but chained doors and broken dreams. The Jazz Trio's manager left a voicemail that's basically just heavy breathing and the phrase, "What the hell, man?" repeated 6 times. I respect the direct approach, but my absolute favorite has to be the message from Clarissa that she left around 3 a.m., when the scotch had probably worn off and the reality was really starting to sink in. Her voice is different in this one. Not angry, not demanding, just broken. You're destroying my life because you're bitter. This isn't fair, Michael. I worked for everything I have. I earned it. You can't just take it all away because you're upset about one stupid party. Call me back. Please just call me back and we'll figure this out. I take another sip of coffee and delete the message without a second thought. One stupid party? Lady, that one stupid party was just the grand finale of a 3-year performance where I played the role of ATM while you auditioned for the part of loving wife. Around 10:30, my doorbell rings. Not the gentle, polite ring of someone making a delivery, but the angry, sustained buzz of someone leaning on the button like they're trying to send Morse code in desperation. I walk to the intercom and see Julia, Clarissa's assistant, standing on my stoop looking like she's been through a blender. Her usually perfect hair is disheveled, her cheeks are red from cold and what looks suspiciously like tears, and she's clutching her phone like it's a life preserver. Julia, I say through the intercom, not bothering to hide my amusement. What brings you to my humble abode? Mr. Harrington, please, I need to talk to you. It's about Clarissa and everything that's happening. Can I please come up? I buzz her in because, honestly, I'm curious. Julia's been Clarissa's faithful sidekick for 2 years, handling everything from scheduling her nail appointments to covering for her when she was out on those mysterious networking trips. If anyone's got a front row seat to this disaster, it's her. She practically stumbles into my apartment, looking around like she's never seen the place before. Which is weird, considering she's been here dozens of times picking up files or dropping off dry cleaning. Everything's falling apart. She blurts out before I can even offer her coffee. The party collapsed in the middle of the night. People were dancing and drinking, and then suddenly the bar tab got declined. The venue manager came out and started asking questions about payment, and then security showed up because someone was shouting about fraud. I settle into my favorite chair and gesture for her to continue. This is better than Netflix. Martin's office is in chaos. Payroll didn't process this morning. Half the staff is asking questions about their direct deposits, and the other half is whispering about some kind of buyout. The phones are ringing nonstop with vendors wanting to know why their payments bounced. She's talking faster now, like she needs to get it all out before she loses her nerve. Clarissa's been in the bathroom, crying for an hour. She keeps asking me to call you, but you're not answering, and I don't know what to tell her because I don't understand what's happening. I take another sip of my coffee and give her absolutely nothing. No explanation, no sympathy, no reassurance that everything's going to work out fine. Just silence and the steady tick of my kitchen clock. Mr. Harrington, please, she tries again. Whatever's going on between you and Clarissa, there are other people involved now. Good people who don't deserve to lose their jobs because of whatever this is. That's when I lean forward and look her directly in the eyes. Julia, I say, my voice perfectly calm. I haven't destroyed anything. I've just stopped paying for it. Hashtag Chapter 5, Terms of Surrender. There's something deeply satisfying about drafting legal documents when you're running on pure spite and premium coffee. It's like meditation, except instead of finding inner peace, you're finding inner vengeance, and honestly, inner vengeance is way more fun. After Julia leaves, looking like someone who just witnessed a car accident in slow motion, I settle back into my home office with a fresh cup of coffee and the kind of focus that usually only comes from Adderall and looming deadlines. But today's deadline is entirely self-imposed. How quickly can I turn 3 years of legal education into the most beautifully crafted screw you letter in the history of matrimonial warfare? I fire up my laptop and open a fresh document, the cursor blinking at me like it's waiting for inspiration. Well, cursor, today's your lucky day, because inspiration is about to flow like wine at a frat party. The header gets the full treatment. Heavyweight cream paper, embossed letterhead, the kind of formatting that screams, this document cost more to print than your monthly grocery budget. Because if you're going to destroy someone's life, you might as well do it with style. Terms of Resolution ***. From Michael J. Harrington, ESQ ***. To Clarissa M. Harrington ***. Re. Dissolution of Financial Support and Marital Relations ***. God, I love legal language. It's like regular English, except it wears a 3-piece suit and charges by the hour. Term 1. Public Acknowledgement of Educational Support ***. This is where things get fun. Clarissa must post a public statement, and I mean public, not some buried Facebook post that only her aunt from Wisconsin will see, acknowledging that I funded her law degree in full. We're talking Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, maybe even a full-page ad in the New York Law Journal, if I'm feeling particularly vindictive. The exact wording is non-negotiable. I want to publicly acknowledge that my husband, Michael Harrington, funded my law school education at Columbia Law School in its entirety. My previous social media posts and public statements suggesting alternative sources of support were inaccurate and misleading. I am grateful for his financial investment in my career and want to set the record straight. I read it over twice, making sure every word hits exactly the right note of humiliation disguised as gratitude. It's like a thank you card written by a lawyer who specializes in emotional warfare. Term 2. Resignation and Forfeiture ***. Martin Cross must resign from Cross and Partners immediately, effective upon execution of this agreement. Not next month, not after he transitions his responsibilities, not after he finds a new job. Immediately. As in, clean out your desk and turn in your key card. Buddy, because the building's under new management. And here's the beautiful part. He waives all rights to severance, benefits, stock options, or any other compensation beyond his final paycheck. You know, the paycheck that's probably going to bounce because Global Corp Legal Holdings is going to have some very interesting questions about the company's financial structure once they take over. Term 3. Asset forfeiture and property rights, ***. This is where I get to flex those property law classes that I thought would never be useful in real life. Clarissa waives any and all claims to my assets, including, but not limited to, real estate holdings, investment portfolios, retirement accounts, intellectual property, business interests, and that vintage guitar collection that she always said was taking up too much space. She also agrees to vacate our shared residence within 30 days and remove all personal belongings. Anything left behind becomes my property by default. I'm particularly looking forward to donating her collection of inspirational self-help books to Goodwill. Term 4. Non-disclosure and non-disparagement, ***. Here's where my law school education really pays off. Both Clarissa and Martin agree to a binding non-disclosure agreement regarding any and all aspects of our marriage, my business dealings, and the circumstances surrounding the dissolution of our relationship. They also agree to non-disparagement terms, which basically means they can't trash talk me in public, private, or on social media. No bitter ex-wife interviews, no tell-all blog posts, no passive-aggressive Instagram stories with vague references to toxic people, and moving on from negativity. The penalty for violation? Liquidated damages of $50,000 per incident. Because apparently, putting a price tag on keeping your mouth shut is perfectly legal when you've got the right paperwork. Term 5. Breach and enforcement, ***. This is my favorite part, the legal equivalent of mess with me and find out. Any breach of these terms results in immediate litigation and asset clawbacks. I'm talking about going after every penny I ever spent on her education, every dollar that went toward her professional development, every cent that funded her lifestyle while she was planning her exit strategy, plus attorney fees, plus court costs, plus whatever punitive damages I can convince a judge she deserves for the sheer audacity of thinking she could humiliate me without consequences. I lean back in my chair and admire my handiwork. 5 terms, each one more devastating than the last, laid out in the kind of precise legal language that makes it impossible to misinterpret or wiggle out of. It's like a prenuptial agreement, except instead of protecting assets before marriage, it's destroying lives after betrayal. The beauty of this document isn't just in its legal precision, it's in its psychological warfare. Every term is designed to strip away not just their financial security, but their dignity, their public image, their sense of control over their own narrative. Clarissa wanted to erase me from my own success story. Well, congratulations, honey, because now she gets to publicly acknowledge that her entire career was built on my foundation. Martin wanted to play CEO while I bankrolled his empire? Hope he enjoys explaining to his next employer why his last job ended with him getting escorted out by security. I print the document on the good paper, the stuff I usually reserve for actual legal clients, and slide it into a heavy manila envelope with my law firm's return address. The kind of envelope that looks serious and official, the kind that makes your stomach drop when it shows up in your mailbox. Then I seal it with actual wax, because if you're going to serve someone legal papers that are going to ruin their life, you might as well make it look dignified. Just as I'm admiring the finished product, my doorbell rings again. I check the security camera and see Julia standing on my stoop, looking somehow even more frazzled than she did this morning. Her hair is completely disheveled now, her mascara is smudged, and she's clutching her phone like it might spontaneously combust. I buzz her up, envelope in hand. Mr. Harrington. She starts before she's even fully through the door. Clarissa sent me back. She's desperate. She says she'll do anything to fix this. She just needs to know what you want. I hold up the envelope, watching her eyes focus on it like it's a live snake. Julia, I say, my voice perfectly calm, I want you to deliver this to Clarissa. In person. Make sure she reads every word. Make sure she understands every clause. and makes sure she knows that she has exactly 24 hours to sign it. Julia takes the envelope with shaking hands, staring at it like it might explode. What happens if she doesn't sign it? I smile, and for the first time in this entire ordeal, it's not sarcastic or bitter. It's genuinely pleasant, the kind of smile that makes people nervous because they can't figure out what's behind it. Then we find out how much a really good divorce attorney costs these days. You know that old saying about how you can't go home again? Well, turns out nobody told Clarissa, because at exactly 7:43 p.m., she's standing at my door like some kind of designer ghost from relationships past. I'm halfway through a very satisfying dinner of leftover Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine that costs more than most people's car payments when I hear it. 3 soft knocks on the door. Not the angry pounding I was expecting. Not the dramatic fist-banging that would match her usual theatrical style. Just 3 quiet, almost hesitant knocks, like she's not sure she wants me to answer. Through the peephole, she looks like a completely different person than the glowing goddess from her Instagram post. The champagne dress, my $800 champagne dress, is wrinkled and stained with what looks suspiciously like mascara and red wine. Her hair, usually styled to perfection by some guy named Ricardo who charges more per hour than most lawyers, is greasy and hanging in limp strands around her face. The makeup that usually makes her look like she stepped off a magazine cover is completely gone, replaced by the kind of puffy, red-eyed look that comes from crying in bathroom stalls. She looks, in short, like someone who's been living in her car for the past 24 hours. Which, given that her credit cards are about as useful as Monopoly money right now, might actually be the case. I open the door and lean against the frame, taking in the full scope of her disaster. It's like looking at the after photo in one of those cautionary tales about what happens when you mess with someone who went to law school. Hello, Clarissa. I keep my voice perfectly neutral, like she's a door-to-door salesperson trying to convince me I need new windows. Michael. Her voice is hoarse, probably from all that crying Julia mentioned earlier. Can I come in? We need to talk. I step aside and gesture her into the apartment that used to be ours, but is now very definitively mine. She walks in like she's entering a crime scene, looking around at everything with this expression of confused recognition, like she can't quite believe she used to live here. You look like hell, I observe, settling back into my chair with my wine. I don't offer her a drink. I don't offer her a seat. I just watch her stand there in the middle of my living room, fidgeting with the hem of that expensive dress that now looks like something from a thrift store clearance rack. I've been trying to figure out what happened. She starts, and already I can tell this is going to be good. The party, the cards, Martin's company. None of it makes sense. I take a sip of wine and say nothing. One of the first things they teach you in law school is that silence makes people uncomfortable, and uncomfortable people say stupid things. I'm really hoping Clarissa's about to say something spectacularly stupid. I know you're angry about the party, she continues, starting to pace back and forth across my hardwood floors in those ridiculously expensive heels that I probably paid for too. And I get it, okay? Maybe I handled it wrong. Maybe I should have told you differently. Maybe she should have told me differently. Like maybe she should have told me she was planning to humiliate me in front of half of Manhattan's legal community while making out with her boss for social media content. Yeah, that probably would have been the better approach. But this... She gestures vaguely around the apartment, like my furniture is somehow responsible for her current situation. This isn't fair, Michael. The cards, the accounts, whatever you did to Martin's company, it's vindictive. Vindictive. That's rich, coming from someone who spent 3 years planning her exit strategy while I funded her dreams. You want to know what's not fair? I finally speak, and she freezes mid-pace like I just fired a starting gun. What's not fair is funding someone's entire law school education while they're shopping for your replacement. What's not fair is paying for networking trips that were actually romantic getaways. What's not fair is having your wife tell you that you don't deserve to be celebrated on what should have been one of the biggest nights of your life. She opens her mouth to interrupt, but I hold up a hand. But most of all, what's not fair is discovering that your marriage was basically a very expensive performance art piece where I played the role of bank account while you auditioned for the part of loving wife. Her face goes through this fascinating series of expressions: surprise, guilt, defiance, desperation. Like she's cycling through different strategies to see which one might work. It wasn't like that. She finally settles on, going with denial. Classic choice. Yes, Martin and I got close, but it wasn't. It didn't mean anything until recently. The party wasn't supposed to hurt you. I just felt. She pauses, searching for the right words. I felt overshadowed. Overshadowed by the guy who was paying for her entire lifestyle. The logic is so twisted it's almost artistic. You felt overshadowed. I repeat slowly, letting the words hang in the air like a bad smell. So you decided the best solution was to erase me from my own graduation party and make out with your boss on Instagram. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Her voice is getting higher, more desperate. The party was supposed to be about celebrating both of us, but everyone kept talking about your law degree, your achievements, your future. I worked just as hard as you did, and nobody seemed to care. I leaned forward in my chair, really looking at her for the first time since she walked in. Clarissa, who do you think paid for you to work just as hard as I did? The question hits her like a physical blow. She actually staggers backward, her hand reaching for the wall to steady herself. I earned my degree, she whispers, but there's no conviction behind it anymore. With what money? Your salary barely covered your shoe budget. Your rent, your tuition, your books, your laptop, your bar exam prep courses. Where do you think that money came from? The student loan fairy. She's crying now, ugly tears that are probably ruining what's left of her makeup. But I'm not done. You want to talk about being overshadowed? Try paying for someone else's success while they publicly thank someone else for sponsoring their future. Michael, please. She's begging now, and part of me, a very small, very stupid part, almost feels sorry for her. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can work it out. I made a mistake, okay? I admit it. But don't destroy everything we built together. I stand up, and she actually flinches. Clarissa, there is no we. There never was. There was me paying for things, and you taking credit for them. I walk to my desk and pull out a copy of the terms I drafted earlier. Her eyes widen when she sees the official letterhead. Julia delivered my terms, I assume? She nods, not trusting her voice. 24 hours, I say, checking my watch. You've got about 18 left. These terms are humiliating, she manages. Humiliation, I say, walking back to my chair, is standing outside a chained ballroom while your wife makes out with her boss on social media. Everything else is just consequences. For the first time since she walked in, Clarissa has nothing to say. She just stands there, staring at me like she's seeing a stranger. And maybe she is. Maybe the guy who funded her dreams and asked for nothing in return really is gone. Maybe what's left is someone who learned that the best way to deal with people who don't appreciate what you give them is to stop giving it. 18 hours, Clarissa. After that, we'll let the lawyers figure it out. There's something deeply satisfying about walking into a room where everyone thinks they know the rules of the game, except you're the only one who actually read the rulebook. It's like showing up to a poker game where everyone's been playing with Monopoly money while you've got the real deal tucked away in your jacket pocket. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, I stride into the gleaming offices of Cross & Partners like I own the place. Which, until about 48 hours ago, I technically did. The building is one of those modern Manhattan towers with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough marble to build a small cathedral, the kind of place that screams, we charge $400 an hour, and we're worth every penny. The receptionist, a perfectly polished 20-something named Madison who probably went to some expensive private college and still lives in her parents' guest house in Connecticut, looks up from her computer with the kind of professional smile that falters the moment she recognizes me. Mr. Harrington, she says, and I can hear the uncertainty in her voice. Word travels fast in small offices, and I'm betting the gossip mill has been working overtime since my little financial earthquake hit on Friday night. Are you here to see Mr. Cross? Actually, Madison, Mr. Cross isn't here anymore. I say, adjusting my tie and enjoying the way her perfectly applied makeup can't quite hide the confusion spreading across her face. I'm here for the emergency board meeting. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor feels longer than usual, probably because I'm savoring every second of what's about to happen. The offices of Cross & Partners occupy the entire floor, all glass walls and ergonomic furniture designed to impress clients and justify those ridiculous hourly rates. Usually, the place hums with the kind of productive energy that comes from very smart people making very large amounts of money. Today, it feels like a morgue where someone forgot to turn off the lights. Employees huddle in small groups near the coffee machine, their voices dropping to whispers when they see me walk past. The junior associates who usually stride around like they're the masters of the universe are now shuffling papers with the kind of nervous energy that suggests their job security just became a very real concern. The panic in the air is almost tangible, like humidity before a thunderstorm. You can practically smell the fear mixed with expensive cologne and the burnt coffee that happens when people are too stressed to remember how to work the machine properly. I make my way to the main conference room, the one with the mahogany table that seats 20 and the view of Central Park that probably adds $50,000 to the annual rent. Through the glass walls, I can see the senior staff gathered around scattered documents, their faces wearing the kind of expressions usually reserved for natural disasters and tax audits. I knock once on the door frame and walk in without waiting for permission, because honestly, what are they going to do? Fire me? Gentlemen, I say, setting my briefcase on the table with the kind of deliberate precision that makes everyone jump slightly. Ladies, I hope you don't mind if I join you. The senior partners, all 5 of them, look like they've been hit by a truck driven by the IRS. Brad Summers, the CFO who usually looks like he stepped out of a Wall Street recruiting poster, has loosened his tie and his hair is actually messed up. Sarah Chun, the managing partner who prides herself on never showing emotion in business dealings, has dark circles under her eyes that suggest she hasn't slept since Friday. Michael, Brad stammers, shuffling through a stack of papers like he's looking for a life preserver. We've been trying to reach you all weekend. There are some irregularities with the company structure that we need to discuss. Irregularities. That's a beautiful way to describe finding out that your entire company belongs to someone else. Where's Martin? Asks Jennifer Walsh, the senior litigation partner who usually speaks with the confidence of someone who's never lost a case. Today, she sounds like she's not sure she wants to know the answer. Martin submitted his resignation this morning. I say, settling into the chair at the head of the table like I belong there. Which, for the past 18 months, I have. Effective immediately. Didn't he send you all a copy? The silence that follows is so complete, I can hear the air conditioning system humming in the walls. 5 of Manhattan's most expensive legal minds, and none of them can figure out how to form words. Resignation? Sarah finally manages. Martin doesn't. He can't just resign. He's the CEO. He founded this company. I slide copies of the acquisition paperwork across the table, watching their faces as they process what they're reading. It's like watching people discover that gravity works in reverse, that fundamental assumption about reality that turns out to be completely wrong. Actually, I say, my voice perfectly calm while their world implodes around them. Martin had vision. I'll give him that. But vision doesn't pay for office space, employee salaries, or those custom Italian leather chairs you're all sitting in. I provided the capital. All of it. Brad picks up one of the documents, his hands shaking slightly as he reads. 90% ownership stake, he reads aloud, his voice getting quieter with each word. Primary shareholder, controlling interest. Wait, interrupts David Kim, the tax specialist who usually treats complex financial structures like Sudoku puzzles. You're saying Martin was never actually the owner. Martin was the CEO, I explain patiently, like I'm teaching a law school class on corporate structure. A very well-paid, very visible CEO who did excellent work building the company I funded. But ownership? Ownership was always mine. The reality is sinking in now, and I can practically see the mental calculations happening behind their eyes. Every decision Martin made, every company policy, every long-term strategy session. All of it happened at the pleasure of someone they barely knew existed. But the board meetings, Jennifer says weekly. The strategic planning sessions. Martin always made the final decisions. Martin made the decisions I allowed him to make. I correct. As long as the company was profitable and growing, I was happy to let him play CEO. It's amazing how much freedom you can give someone when you hold the mortgage on their empire. Sarah is flipping through the acquisition documents now, her lawyer brain finally kicking into gear. Global Corp Legal Holdings, she reads. You sold your stake to Global Corp? 90% of Cross and Partners for $195 million. I confirm. The transaction was completed over the weekend. Effective immediately, the number hits them like a physical blow. $195 million. For a company they thought belonged to their friend and colleague Martin Cross. Jesus Christ, Brad whispers, which is probably the first time he's used that kind of language in a boardroom. Martin had no idea, did he? Martin knew exactly what our arrangement was. I say, standing and walking to the window that overlooks the park. He just chose to believe his own press releases about being a visionary entrepreneur. It's a common mistake among people who confuse being the face of something with actually owning it. I turn back to face the room, where 5 of the city's most successful lawyers are sitting in stunned silence, probably wondering if their law degrees came with some kind of warranty they could invoke. Global Corp's transition team will be here Wednesday morning. I continue. They'll be conducting interviews with all senior staff to determine who fits into their long-term plans. I'd suggest updating your resumes. I pick up my briefcase and head for the door, pausing just before I leave. Oh, and if anyone's wondering where Martin is right now, I believe he's cleaning out his office. Security escorted him out around 8:30 this morning after he sent that resignation email. As I walk toward the elevator, I can hear the explosion of voices from the conference room behind me. Panic, anger, disbelief, and probably a few choice words about Martin Cross and his legendary business acumen. The elevator doors close on the sound of their world falling apart, and I have to admit, it's music to my ears. You know that moment in a chess match when your opponent finally realizes they've been playing checkers the whole time? Well, sitting across from Clarissa at a quiet cafe in the Upper East Side, watching her stare into her coffee like it might contain the answers to life's greatest mysteries, I'm pretty sure I'm witnessing that exact moment. The cafe, a little place called Gramercy Grounds that serves overpriced lattes to people who think spending $12 on coffee somehow makes them more sophisticated, is nearly empty at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Just a few remote workers tapping away on MacBooks and a couple of tourists trying to figure out if they're in the right neighborhood for whatever Instagram photo they're chasing. I chose this place specifically because it's neutral territory, the kind of spot where 2 people can have a civilized conversation about the complete destruction of someone's life without causing a scene. Also, they have excellent scones, and if you're going to watch someone's world burn down, you might as well have good pastry. Clarissa looks like she hasn't slept since our little chat last night. The designer clothes are gone, replaced by jeans and a Columbia Law sweatshirt that I'm pretty sure I bought her during her first semester. Her hair is pulled back in a ponytail that screams, I gave up caring about appearances around the same time my credit card stopped working. And her face has that hollow, shell-shocked look of someone who's been hit by a bus and is still trying to figure out what just happened. The terms are humiliating, she says for probably the 5th time since we sat down, stirring her coffee with the kind of mechanical precision that suggests she's not really thinking about what she's doing. I take a bite of my scone, raspberry white chocolate, absolutely divine, and spread the folder of documents across the small table between us. Bank statements, wire transfer receipts, tuition invoices, receipts for everything from her bar exam prep course to that ridiculously expensive laptop she needed for law school research. Humiliating, I repeat thoughtfully, like I'm considering the word. For the first time. That's an interesting choice of words, coming from someone who publicly thanked her boss for sponsoring her future while her husband was standing outside a chained door. She flinches, but doesn't look up from her coffee. I slide the first document across the table, her Columbia Law tuition statement from first semester. Remind me, Clarissa, who wrote this check for $43,000. She glances at it briefly, then looks away. You did. And this one? Second semester tuition. $43,000. You did. How about this? Third semester. $43,000. Michael, I get it. Do you? I interrupt, sliding more documents across the table like I'm dealing cards in the world's most expensive poker game. Because I'm not sure you do. Here's your laptop. $1,500. Your bar exam prep course. $3,000. Your professional wardrobe allowance. And yes, I have receipts for every single shopping trip to Nordstrom and Saks. The pile of evidence grows between us, each document a testament to 3 years of funding someone else's dreams while they planned their exit strategy. Clarissa stares at them like they're written in a foreign language, her face going through a fascinating progression of emotions: denial, recognition, guilt, and finally something that might actually be understanding. Your living expenses, I continue, pulling out the rent receipts. $2,400 a month for 3 years. Your transportation costs, your food, your gym membership, your Netflix subscription, your health insurance, everything. I lean back in my chair and watch her process the math. It's not complicated arithmetic, but sometimes the simplest truths are the hardest to accept. $167,000, I say quietly. That's what your law degree actually cost. Not counting the opportunity cost of supporting you while you weren't working, or the investment returns I gave up by liquidating assets to fund your education. She's crying now, but they're different tears than the dramatic ones from last night. These are the quiet, defeated tears of someone who's finally seeing the truth without any filters or justifications. I never asked you to pay for everything, she whispers. No, I agree. You didn't ask. You just assumed. And when it came time to celebrate your success, you decided the person who made it possible didn't deserve to be there. I pull out my phone and open a new document, typing quickly while she sits there staring at the financial graveyard of our marriage. Here's what we're going to do, I say, turning the phone toward her so she can read the screen. We're going to draft a public statement. Together. And you're going to post it on every social media platform you use, plus LinkedIn, plus whatever legal journals will publish it. She reads the draft, and I watch her face go pale. I want to publicly acknowledge that my husband, Michael Harrington, funded my law school education at Columbia Law School in its entirety, she reads aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. My previous social media posts and public statements suggesting alternative sources of support were inaccurate and misleading. I am grateful for his financial investment in my career and want to set the record straight. Too harsh, I ask, like I'm genuinely concerned about her feelings. Michael, please. Everyone will see this. My colleagues, my clients, everyone in the legal community. They'll know that everything I accomplished was funded by your husband. I finish. Yeah, that's kind of the point. See, the thing about truth, Clarissa, is that it has this funny way of being true whether people know about it or not. I'm just making sure people know about it. She sets the phone down like it's radioactive. What about Martin's post? She asks, grasping for any kind of negotiation room. Will you make him post something too? I laugh, actually laugh, because the question is so beautifully naive. Clarissa, Martin doesn't have social media anymore. Martin doesn't have a job anymore. Martin doesn't have a company anymore. Martin's biggest concern right now is probably figuring out how to explain to his next interviewer why his last position ended with him being escorted out by security. The reality hits her like cold water. She's been so focused on her own humiliation that she forgot Martin's world ended too. But the party, she says desperately. The celebration. Everyone saw him there, saw us together. They'll want to know what happened. They'll figure it out, I say, picking up my phone and making a few edits to the statement. Especially after this goes live and people start doing the math on who is actually paying for what. I show her the revised version, which includes a timeline of my financial support and a brief explanation of how she came to be in a position to work at Henderson and Associates in the first place. This is career suicide, she protests. No, I correct. This is career honesty. There's a difference. Your career isn't ending. It's just starting with the truth instead of a fairy tale about mysterious sponsors and self-made success. I lean forward, meeting her eyes for the first time since she sat down. Here's the thing, Clarissa. You have a choice. You can sign my terms, post this statement, and rebuild your career on an honest foundation. Or you can refuse, and we can let a family court judge decide how much of my money you're entitled to keep after committing adultery. She stares at the phone screen for a long moment, reading and rereading words that are going to change everything. If I post this, she finally says, it goes live tonight. Tonight, I confirm. Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and I'll make sure it gets picked up by the New York Law Journal and Legal Affairs Weekly. She closes her eyes, takes a deep breath, and picks up the phone. Fine, she whispers. But I want to add one thing. I raise an eyebrow. I want to add that despite everything, I'm grateful. Not just for the money, but for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I consider this for a moment, then nod. That's fair, I say. After all, it's still the truth. You know what they say about one door closing and another one opening? Well, turns out sometimes the door that opens leads to a drafty warehouse in Brooklyn where a 27-year-old genius is about to change the entire legal industry while surviving on pizza and pure determination. And honestly, That's exactly the kind of door I want to walk through right now. 3 weeks after Clarissa's public mea culpa went viral. And I mean viral, like trending on LinkedIn for 2 days straight while legal Twitter had a field day dissecting our marriage. I'm standing in what used to be a textile factory in Dumbo, looking at the future of legal research through floor-to-ceiling windows that haven't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. The building is everything that Cross and Partners wasn't. Raw concrete floors, exposed brick walls, industrial lighting that buzzes slightly when the wind picks up, and the kind of authentic grittiness that tech companies pay interior designers millions to fake. It's the anti-corporate office, the kind of place where people wear hoodies to million-dollar meetings and nobody cares if you put your feet up on the conference table. Ava Delgado is exactly what you'd expect from someone who dropped out of MIT to revolutionize legal research. 5 feet 3 inches of concentrated brilliance wrapped in a Stanford computer science hoodie and jeans that probably cost less than Clarissa used to spend on lunch. Her hair is pulled back in a messy bun secured with what looks like a pencil. She's wearing sneakers that have seen better decades. And when she shakes my hand, I notice her fingernails are bitten down to nubs, the universal sign of someone whose brain moves faster than the rest of the world can keep up with. "Mr. Harrington," she says, and her voice has that slight accent that suggests English wasn't her first language, but she's more fluent in it than most native speakers. "Thanks for coming out to Brooklyn. I know it's not exactly Wall Street." "Please, call me Michael," I say, looking around the space that's buzzing with the kind of productive chaos that happens when really smart people are solving really hard problems. And honestly, after spending the last few weeks in Manhattan law offices, this feels refreshingly honest. She grins at that, and I can see why her team follows her into this converted warehouse every day instead of taking the safe jobs at Google and Facebook that their resumes could easily command. "Honest is what we're going for," she says, leading me toward a corner of the warehouse where someone has set up what can generously be called a conference area. A few mismatched chairs around a table that looks like it came from a school cafeteria, but with about 15 monitors displaying more code than I've seen outside of a sci-fi movie. "So tell me about the company," I say, settling into a chair that's surprisingly comfortable despite looking like it was rescued from a dumpster. "Your email mentioned artificial intelligence and legal research, but I have to admit, most of what I know about AI comes from watching movies where robots try to take over the world." Ava laughs, a genuine, unguarded laugh that's about as far from Clarissa's practiced social chuckle as you can get. "No killer robots, I promise," she says, pulling up a laptop that's covered in stickers from conferences I've never heard of. "What we're building is basically a legal research assistant that doesn't need coffee breaks or sleep. Think of it as having a junior associate who's read every case law decision, every statute, every legal precedent ever written, and can find exactly what you need in about 30 seconds. She starts typing, and the screen fills with what looks like a search interface, except instead of the clunky legal databases that most firms use, the ones that charge thousands per month and still require you to know exactly what you're looking for. This looks clean, intuitive, almost Google simple. "Watch this," she says, typing in a query that would normally take a team of junior associates hours to research. "Find all precedents for breach of fiduciary duty in partnership agreements where the plaintiff provided over 75% of startup capital." The results appear in less than 20 seconds. Not just case citations, but actual summaries, relevant quotes, and a confidence score for each result's applicability to the query. Holy shit. I breathe, leaning forward to look at the screen more closely. "That's usually the reaction we get," Ava says, clearly proud but trying not to show it. "Our algorithm doesn't just search for keywords. It actually understands legal concepts, relationships between cases, and can identify patterns that human researchers might miss." I scroll through the results, recognizing cases I remember from law school, but also seeing connections I never would have made. It's like having a legal research team of geniuses working 24/7, except they never get tired, never make mistakes, and never bill you for the time they spend arguing about where to order lunch. "This is incredible," I say, and I mean it. "How does it work?" Ava's eyes light up the way Clarissa's used to when she talked about getting promoted to partner. Except this is genuine excitement about solving problems instead of climbing ladders. "We trained our neural network on basically every legal document that's ever been digitized," she explains, pulling up another screen that shows training data metrics that make my head spin. Court decisions, statutes, law review articles, briefs, contracts, millions and millions of documents. The AI learned to understand legal reasoning the same way humans do, except it can process information about 1,000,000 times faster. She shows me more demos. Contract analysis that identifies potential problem clauses, legal brief generation that creates first drafts in minutes instead of days, compliance checking that scans corporate documents for regulatory violations. Each example is more impressive than the last, and I can practically see the dollar signs floating in the air. What's your business model? I ask, because as much as I appreciate brilliant technology, I'm still a business guy at heart. Software as a service, she says, pulling up a presentation that's clearly been refined through dozens of investor meetings. Law firms pay monthly subscriptions based on the size of their team. We're already in beta with 12 firms, including Henderson and Associates. That name makes me smile. Henderson and Associates. Clarissa's firm, the one that's probably still trying to figure out how to spin her public confession into something that doesn't make them look like idiots for not knowing who is actually funding their junior associate's education. The numbers work. I ask. They work beautifully, she says, showing me projections that would make any investor's heart race. Conservative estimates put us at 15 million in revenue by year 2, scaling to over 100 million by year 5. The market for legal technology is massive and underserved. Most firms are still using research tools that haven't been updated since the 1990s. I look around the warehouse, taking in the team of engineers scattered throughout the space. They're young, brilliant, and completely focused on their screens, the kind of people who could be making twice as much at big tech companies but chose to be here because they believe in what they're building. Tell me about your team, I say. Former Google, Netflix, PayPal engineers, she says, and I can hear the pride in her voice. Most of them took pay cuts to join us, working for equity and pizza because they believe we're going to change how legal work gets done. No corporate politics, no bureaucracy, just smart people solving hard problems. I stand up and walk to one of the big windows, looking out at the Manhattan skyline across the river. From here, the city looks different, less intimidating, more like a puzzle waiting to be solved. What do you need from me? I ask. 15 million for 45% equity and a board seat, she says without hesitation. Enough runway to scale the team, invest in sales and marketing, and become the standard legal research platform for mid to large firms. I turn back to face her, this brilliant young woman who's about to revolutionize an industry that desperately needs revolutionizing. Ava, I say, I think we can do business. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new 2-bedroom apartment on the Upper West Side, sipping coffee that costs more than most people's lunch while reading the morning paper like some kind of suburban dad who actually has his life together. The divorce finalized 3 weeks ago. Clarissa signed everything without a fight. Turns out public humiliation and financial reality have a way of making people surprisingly cooperative. Last I heard through the Legal Gossip Network, she moved to San Francisco and landed a job with some legal aid organization, helping immigrants navigate citizenship paperwork for 35 grand a year. It's honest work, which is more than I can say for her previous career trajectory. Martin? Poor Martin landed in Chicago, working compliance for a mid-tier insurance company. Word is he tells people at networking events that he pivoted to regulatory consulting after successfully exiting his previous venture. It's amazing how creative people get with language when their empire collapses. My phone buzzes with a text from Ava. Just closed the Henderson deal, $2.3 million contract. Rooftop drinks tonight to celebrate. I smile, genuinely smile, for the first time in months. Ava's team hit every milestone I invested in, and Henderson and Associates, Clarissa's old firm, just became their biggest client. The irony is delicious. My apartment is nothing like the marble shrine Clarissa and I used to call home. Wood floors, simple furniture, books everywhere, and a kitchen where I actually cook instead of ordering overpriced takeout. No Instagram-worthy moments, no curated lifestyle shots, just peace. 6 months ago, I stood outside those chained doors, erased from my own celebration. Turns out getting erased was the best thing that ever happened to me. Sometimes the end of your story is actually just the beginning of a better one. I grab my jacket and head out to meet Ava. Tonight, we're celebrating something real. My wife said, if you don't trust me working late night with my boss every day, maybe we shouldn't be together. I replied, you're absolutely right. Then I accepted the job transfer to New York I'd been declining for her. When she texted, what are you doing this weekend? I sent a selfie from John F. Kennedy International Airport. For years, that's how long I'd been married to Julia, and let me tell you, I thought we had our shit together. Sure, we weren't some fairy tale couple posting Instagram stories every 5 minutes about our perfect love, but we were solid. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself, while watching my wife transform into someone I barely recognized. It all started innocently enough, or so I thought, because apparently I'm about as sharp as a bowling ball when it comes to reading the obvious signs. Julia landed this new position at her marketing firm, working directly under Adrian, this hotshot executive who looked like he stepped out of a Men's Health magazine cover. The guy had that whole, I definitely use product in my hair and own more than 3 suits vibe going on. But hey, good for her, right? Career advancement and all that American dream bullshit. The first few late nights seemed legit. Big presentation coming up, client demands. The usual corporate circus that keeps the lights on and the mortgage paid. Julia would come home around 9, maybe 10, looking tired but talking animatedly about strategy sessions and brainstorming marathons with Adrian. I'd heat up her dinner, pour her a glass of wine, and listen to her decompress. Supportive husband material right there. I should have gotten a damn medal. But then 9 became 10. 10 became 11. 11 became, don't wait up. Honey, we're really in the zone here. And suddenly, every single project at her company apparently required round-the-clock attention from my wife and her dreamy boss. What were they doing over there? Solving world hunger? Curing cancer? Nope, just selling overpriced skincare products to suburban moms. But apparently that required more dedication than NASA's moon landing. The changes were subtle at first, which is probably why it took my dense ass so long to connect the dots. Julia started paying attention to her appearance in ways she hadn't since we were dating. New dresses that never saw the inside of our apartment, let alone a dinner date with me. Perfume that smelled expensive and definitely wasn't the stuff I bought her last Christmas. Hair appointments every 2 weeks like clockwork. She looked amazing, don't get me wrong, but it stung like hell knowing none of that effort was for the guy sharing her bed. The worst part? Those late-night Uber rides home. I'd hear her phone buzz with notifications, see Adrian's name pop up with messages like, "Car's here," or "Thanks for staying late again." Real professional stuff, clearly. Nothing suspicious about your married employee's boss personally arranging her transportation at midnight, right? I mean, what kind of paranoid psycho would read anything into that? My friends started giving me those looks. You know the ones, part pity, part dude, seriously? Clara, Julia's coworker and supposedly one of her closest friends, would get this uncomfortable expression whenever I'd casually ask if the whole team was pulling these marathon hours. Oh, well, you know how it is with big projects, she'd stammer, avoiding eye contact like I'd asked her to solve calculus. Real convincing, Clara, your poker face needs work. Even my brother Daniel, who usually minded his own business and stuck to safe topics like sports and complaining about his ex-wife's alimony payments, felt compelled to stage an intervention. We were grabbing beers after work one Thursday, and he just laid it out there with all the subtlety of a freight train. "Marcus, you're blind if you don't see what's happening." "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, though my stomach was already dropping like a stone. "Come on, man. Julie is working late every night with Prince Charming, coming home looking like she stepped off a runway, and you're sitting here acting like this is normal? Wake up." But I didn't want to wake up. I wanted to be the cool, trusting husband who didn't turn into some paranoid stalker, checking phone records and demanding receipts. I wanted to believe that my wife of 4 years wouldn't throw away everything we'd built for some office romance novel fantasy. I wanted to trust that the woman who promised to love and honor me meant those words. So I played the part. Smiled when she kissed me goodbye before another emergency strategy session. Nodded understandingly when she explained how Adrian really valued her input on the Johnson account. Pretended not to notice when she started keeping her phone face down during dinner, or how she'd suddenly developed an urgent need to shower the moment she walked through the door. The excuses kept piling up like dirty laundry. Client emergencies that only she could handle. presentations that required her specific expertise until well past normal human bedtime, team building exercises that apparently happened at 11 p.m. on weeknights. It was like watching someone construct an elaborate house of cards, each lie balanced precariously on the last, waiting for the inevitable collapse. Meanwhile, I'm the chump heating up leftovers alone, watching Netflix by myself, going to bed in an empty house, because my wife is apparently the only person in the tri-state area capable of handling whatever crisis Adrian's company was perpetually facing. The loneliness was eating me alive, but I kept telling myself this was temporary. Just a busy season. Things would go back to normal once this project wrapped up. Except there was always another project. Another deadline. Another reason why Adrian absolutely needed Julia's undivided attention at hours when most people were home with their families, walking their dogs, or doing literally anything that didn't involve cozying up with their boss in an empty office building. I should have trusted my gut. Should have listened to Daniel, to Clara's awkward stammering, to every red flag waving in my face like a matador's cape. But love makes you stupid, and hope makes you stubborn. I kept believing because the alternative. Accepting that my marriage was a joke and my wife was playing house with another man was too painful to process. For years of marriage, and this is what it came down to. Me, alone in our apartment, wondering if the woman I'd promised my life to was ever coming home. While my wife was busy playing corporate Cinderella with Prince Adrian, I was getting my own fairy tale offer. Except this one actually involved real money and didn't require me to pretend I was blind. Harold Peterson, my boss for the past 3 years and a straight shooter who looked like he'd stepped out of a 1950s business manual, had been dangling this New York opportunity in front of me like a carrot on a stick. The first time he brought it up was during one of our quarterly reviews, right around the time Julia's late nights were becoming a regular Tuesday through Thursday affair. Harold leaned back in his leather chair, the kind that probably cost more than my car payment, and dropped the bomb with characteristic bluntness. Marcus, I'm going to cut to the chase here. Corporate wants you in Manhattan. Regional director position, overseeing the entire East Coast operation. We're talking a 70% salary bump, company apartment overlooking Central Park, full relocation package, and enough responsibility to make your head spin in the best possible way. I nearly choked on my coffee. 70%? That wasn't just a raise. That was life-changing money. The kind of cash that could pay off our student loans, maybe even let us think about buying instead of renting. But before I could even process the numbers, my brain went straight to Julia mode. That's incredible, Harold, but my wife's got her career here. Her family's all local, and she's really building something with her current company. The words came out automatically, like some kind of programmed response. Good husband Marcus, always putting his wife's needs first, even when she was probably planning her next late-night strategy session with Mr. Perfect Hair. Harold gave me this look, part disappointment, part, are you kidding me right now? He'd been in corporate long enough to recognize when someone was making excuses, and he wasn't buying my supportive spouse routine. Marcus, let me be clear about something. Opportunities like this don't grow on trees. Hell, they don't even grow in greenhouses with perfect conditions and daily fertilizing. This is the kind of position people spend decades working toward, and they're offering it to you at 32. You sure you want to pass this up for someone else's comfort zone? But I did pass it up. Like an absolute champion of self-sabotage, I smiled, shook his hand, and told him I was flattered but couldn't make that kind of move right now. Harold looked like I'd just told him I preferred root canals to promotions, but he nodded and said he'd keep the position open for a few weeks, just in case I came to my senses. That night, I went home to an empty apartment. Shocking, I know, and tried to imagine telling Julia about the offer. In my fantasy version, she'd be excited, maybe even proud that her husband was being headhunted for such a prestigious role. We'd spend the evening talking about our future, about the adventures we could have in the city, about how this could be the fresh start we didn't even know we needed. Reality, of course, had other plans. Julia strolled in at 11:47 p.m. looking like she'd been styled by a team of professionals, smelling like expensive perfume and somebody else's cologne. When I mentioned the New York opportunity, carefully, like I was defusing a bomb, she barely looked up from her phone. That's nice, honey, but you know I can't just abandon everything I've built here. My career is finally taking off, and Adrian says I have real potential for advancement. Plus, Mom would literally have a heart attack if we moved that far away. Adrian says. Those two words were starting to make my eye twitch. When did my wife's boss become the oracle of career wisdom? When did his opinions start mattering more than her husband's once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? A month later, Harold approached me again. This time, he wasn't taking no for an answer quite so gracefully. Marcus, I'm going to be straight with you because I like you, and I'd hate to see you make a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your life. The company is restructuring. This New York position? It's not just a promotion anymore, it's a lifeboat. The regional offices are consolidating, which means your current role might not exist in 6 months. You can either take the golden parachute to Manhattan, or you can update your resume and hope someone else appreciates your talents as much as we do. The subtext was crystal clear. Take the job or start job hunting in a market that was about as friendly as a pack of hungry wolves. But even with that gun to my head, my first instinct was still to consider Julia's feelings. How could I uproot her life? How could I ask her to leave her blossoming career with Adrian? I mean, her marketing firm, just because my job was disappearing. I asked for another week to think it over. Harold agreed, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. He was offering me a chance to run with the big dogs, and I was acting like he'd asked me to relocate to Mars. That week was hell. Every night, Julia came home later and more distracted. Every morning, she left earlier and more dressed up. I felt like I was living with a beautiful stranger who occasionally shared my bed and split the utility bills. Meanwhile, Harold's offer sat on my mental desk like a blinking neon sign. Escape route available. Terms and conditions apply. I started doing the math. The salary bump would mean financial security I'd never experienced. The apartment in Manhattan was worth more in monthly rent than I currently made in 3 months. The career trajectory was the kind of thing that opens doors for decades. But every time I got excited about the possibilities, I'd picture Julia's face when I told her we were leaving. I'd imagine the fight, the tears, the accusations that I was being selfish and impulsive. So I turned it down a second time. Harold didn't even try to hide his disappointment. Marcus, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've never seen someone work so hard to sabotage their own success. Whatever's holding you back here, I hope it's worth sacrificing your future for. Because that's exactly what you're doing. His words stuck with me like a bad song you can't get out of your head. Every time Julia texted that she'd be late again, every time she came home smelling like someone else's life, I heard Harold's voice asking if it was worth it. Every time I ate dinner alone or went to bed in an empty house, I wondered if I was the biggest fool in the tri-state area. The third time Harold approached me, I could see he was done playing games. This was his final offer, and we both knew it. The question was whether I'd finally choose myself or keep waiting for approval that was never going to come. Friday evening, the end of another week of watching my marriage dissolve in real time while I sat on the sidelines like some kind of emotional bench warmer. Julia was in our bedroom, preparing for what had become her weekly ritual, getting dolled up for another urgent project with Adrian. The sound of her hairdryer mixed with the notification pings from her phone created this perfect soundtrack of betrayal that I'd become way too familiar with. I was sitting on the couch, staring at my laptop screen where Harold's latest email sat open like a digital ultimatum. Final offer expires Monday morning. Need your decision by then. 3 months of turning down the opportunity of a lifetime because I was trying to be the supportive husband to a woman who couldn't even be bothered to lie convincingly anymore. The hairdryer shut off, and I could hear Julia moving around the bedroom with that focused energy she used to reserve for special occasions with me. Date nights, anniversaries, my birthday. Back when those things mattered to her more than whatever the hell she was doing with Prince Adrian every night after normal humans went home to their families. She emerged from the bedroom looking like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. Black dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. A dress I'd never seen before, naturally. Hairstyled in those loose waves that took her an hour to perfect. Makeup that could have been done by a professional. And that perfume, the expensive stuff that definitely wasn't in our bathroom cabinet. You look nice, I said, testing the waters. Hot date with Adrian again. She didn't even flinch. Just checked her reflection in the hallway mirror and adjusted her earrings like I'd asked about the weather. It's not a date, Marcus. It's work. Some of us take our careers seriously. That little dig hit exactly where she intended it to. Some of us take our careers seriously. Like I was some slacker who'd been coasting through life while she climbed the corporate ladder one late-night meeting at a time. Actually, speaking of careers, I said, closing my laptop and standing up, I was thinking maybe we could grab dinner tonight. There's that new Italian place on 5th Street you mentioned wanting to try. We could talk about some changes coming up at my job. Julia's phone buzzed. Adrian's name lit up the screen with a text that probably said something earth-shattering like "Cars outside" or "Ready when you are." She glanced at it, then at me, and I watched her face cycle through emotions like she was running diagnostics. Marcus, Adrian needs me tonight. This Johnson account presentation is Monday, and if we don't nail this, it could cost the company the contract. I can't just abandon my responsibilities because you suddenly want to play house. Play house. That's what she called me, wanting to have dinner with my own wife. My marriage had officially become a game of house, and apparently, I was the only one still playing. Julia, you've been working late every single night for 3 months. Weekends too. When exactly are we supposed to spend time together? When am I supposed to matter in this marriage? She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes, like I was being some kind of needy child asking for attention during grown-up time. Marcus, this is what success looks like. If you don't trust me to work late with my boss, if you can't handle me having a demanding career, then maybe we shouldn't be together. There it was. The nuclear option, delivered with all the casualness of someone ordering coffee. Maybe we shouldn't be together. She said it like it was my fault, like my inability to trust her midnight office marathons with Mr. Perfect hair was the problem in our relationship. I felt something shift inside me, like a switch being flipped or a door being slammed shut. For months, I'd been twisting myself into knots trying to be understanding, trying to support her career growth, trying to ignore every red flag waving in my face like a matador's cape. I'd been so busy being the perfect, trusting husband that I'd forgotten I had other options. You know what, Julia? I said, my voice surprisingly calm. You're absolutely right. She blinked, clearly expecting me to backpedal into apologies and reassurances. The smile that started spreading across her face was pure satisfaction. She thought she'd won. Thought she'd successfully guilt-tripped me back into my role as the compliant husband who didn't ask uncomfortable questions. We shouldn't be together, I continued, watching that smile freeze like a glitch in a video game. Her phone buzzed again. Adrian, no doubt, wondering where his favorite employee was. But for once, Julia wasn't reaching for it immediately. She was staring at me like I'd just started speaking Mandarin. What did you just say? I said you're right. If I can't trust my wife working until midnight every night with her boss, if I'm such a burden to your career success, then we definitely shouldn't be together. I pulled out my phone, found Harold's email, and hit reply. My fingers moved across the keyboard with more certainty than I'd felt in months. Harold, I'll take the New York position. Can start in 2 weeks. Thanks for your patience. The send notification sounded like a gunshot in the silence of our apartment. Julia's face went through several expressions at once: confusion, disbelief, anger, and something that might have been panic. Marcus, what are you doing? I'm taking a job in New York. Regional director, 70% salary increase, company apartment in Manhattan. Remember? The opportunity one turned down twice because I thought my wife's happiness was more important than my career. Her phone buzzed a third time. This time, she didn't even glance at it. You can't be serious. You're going to throw away 4 years of marriage because you're having some kind of jealous breakdown. I'm not throwing anything away, Julia. You already did that. I'm just finally accepting reality instead of pretending that my marriage isn't a joke and my wife isn't screwing her boss. I am not. Save it. We both know what's happening here. The only difference is that I'm finally done pretending I don't know. Her phone rang. Adrian's ringtone. She'd given him his own special sound, because of course she had. She stared at it like it might explode, then looked back at me with something approaching desperation. Marcus, you're being ridiculous. You can't just. I can and I am. Have fun at your meeting tonight. Try not to work too hard. I walked into the bedroom, pulled out my suitcase, and started packing. Behind me, I could hear Julia's phone ringing again. Could hear her frantic, whispered conversation with Adrian. Could hear the reality of her choices finally crashing down around her. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The sound of my suitcase zipper cutting through the silence was like a period at the end of a very long, very painful sentence. 4 years of marriage, and it all came down to this. Me folding clothes while my wife had a panicked phone conversation with her boss/side piece in the living room. Adrian, I can't come tonight. Marcus is. He's lost his mind. He's packing. He says he's moving to New York. Her voice carried that edge of hysteria that people get when their carefully constructed house of lies starts collapsing in real time. I kept folding. Shirts, pants, the good suit I'd bought for our anniversary dinner last year. The one where Julia spent half the evening checking her phone for urgent work messages. Everything fit surprisingly well into 2 suitcases, which probably said something depressing about how little I'd accumulated during our marriage, or maybe how ready I was to leave it all behind. Julia's conversation with Adrian continued in hushed, frantic tones. I caught bits and pieces. No, you can't come over here. He knows, Adrian. I think he knows. This is a disaster. Yeah, it was a disaster, all right. Just not for the reasons she thought. I moved to the bathroom, grabbing my toothbrush, shampoo, the electric razor she bought me for Christmas because apparently my face wasn't meeting her standards anymore. Funny how all these little details suddenly made sense when viewed through the lens of my wife is cheating on me with her boss. By the time I emerged from the bathroom, Julia had hung up and was standing in the bedroom doorway looking like someone had just told her Santa Claus was a lie and the Easter Bunny had gambling debts. Marcus, stop. Just stop for a minute and think about what you're doing. I am thinking. For the first time in months, actually. Turns out my brain works a lot better when I'm not trying to convince myself that my marriage isn't a complete sham. She stepped into the room, her perfect hair slightly mussed from running her hands through it, her makeup starting to smudge around the edges. The transformation from magazine cover gorgeous to desperate housewife was almost impressive in its speed. You can't just throw away 4 years like this. Over what? Some paranoid delusion that I'm cheating on you. Paranoid delusion? I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. Julia, you've been working until midnight every single night for 3 months. You dress like you're going to Fashion Week just to sit in conference rooms. You smell like men's cologne when you come home, and your boss personally arranges your late-night transportation. If this is a delusion, it's the most logical one in history. Adrian is my mentor. He's helping me advance my career. God, Marcus, why can't you just trust me? Trust. She wanted me to trust her while she was doing everything short of sending me a PowerPoint presentation titled, How I'm Cheating on My Husband for Dummies. Because trust goes both ways, Julia. And you haven't given me a single reason to trust you in months. Hell, you haven't even tried to be subtle about it. I zipped up the second suitcase and set it next to the first one. 2 bags. 4 years of marriage reduced to 2 pieces of luggage and a growing sense of relief that scared me with its intensity. Where are you even going to stay tonight? Hotel. Harold's arranging temporary housing until the company apartment is ready. Harold knew about this? Harold's been trying to save my career while you've been destroying my marriage. Yeah, he knew. Julia's phone buzzed again. Adrian, no doubt, wondering if the coast was clear for their regularly scheduled programming. She glanced at it, then back at me, and I watched the exact moment she realized she had to choose between dealing with her imploding marriage and keeping her boss happy. She chose her boss. Of course she did. I have to. Adrian's waiting, and this presentation really is important. Sure it is. Don't let me keep you from your very important work. She grabbed her purse, checked her reflection in the mirror one more time, and headed for the door. But she stopped at the threshold, turning back with what I assumed was supposed to be her final guilt trip. Marcus, I'll cut back on the late nights if it bothers you so much. We can work this out. You don't have to run away to New York. Run away. Like I was some scared kid fleeing the scene instead of a grown man making a strategic career move while escaping a toxic marriage. Julia, the only thing that bothers me is that you think I'm stupid enough to believe your lies. Have fun with Adrian tonight. Try to keep it professional. She left, actually walked out the door to go spend the evening with her boss while her husband packed up his life and prepared to move across the country. The symbolism was so perfect it almost hurt. I called a locksmith. 24-hour service, because apparently there's a market for people who need to change their locks on a Friday night. Guy showed up an hour later, took one look at my suitcases and the general vibe of domestic apocalypse, and got to work without asking questions. Probably wasn't his first marriage-ending lock change. While he worked, I packed up Julia's stuff. not out of spite. Well, not entirely out of spite, but because the lease was in my name, and I wasn't interested in being her storage facility while she figured out her next move. Her clothes, her books, her collection of overpriced skincare products that apparently weren't working their magic on her conscience. Everything fit into boxes surprisingly easily. For years of shared life, and her stuff barely filled 6 cardboard containers. Made me wonder if she'd been mentally checked out of this marriage longer than I realized. My phone started buzzing around 11 p.m. Text after text from Julia, each one more desperate than the last. Marcus, this is insane. You can't just change the locks. I'm your wife. You can't kick me out of my own home. You're having a breakdown. You need help. I'll quit my job if that's what you want. Adrian means nothing to me. It's just work. Please don't throw away our marriage over a misunderstanding. You're scaring me. This isn't like you. That last one made me laugh. This isn't like you. She was right. The old Marcus would have been a doormat, would have apologized for being suspicious, would have convinced himself that midnight strategy sessions with dreamy bosses were totally normal in the modern workplace. But the old Marcus was an idiot who nearly flushed his career down the toilet for a woman who couldn't even be bothered to lie convincingly about her affair. The new Marcus was done being an idiot. Saturday morning hit me like a freight train made of regret and Red Bull. I'd spent the night at a Holiday Inn that smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and broken dreams, surrounded by my hastily packed belongings and a growing pile of increasingly unhinged text messages from Julia. By 3 a.m., she'd progressed from denial to bargaining to what I could only describe as creative fiction about her relationship with Adrian. I was sitting in the hotel's lobby, nursing what had to be the world's most depressing continental breakfast coffee, when my phone rang. Noah's name popped up on the screen, and I almost didn't answer. Noah was one of those friends who somehow always knew when your life was imploding. Usually because he had connections everywhere and a talent for being in the right place at the right time to witness maximum drama. Marcus, dude, please tell me you're sitting down for this. I'm eating stale bagels in a hotel lobby at 8 in the morning. Trust me, I'm prepared for bad news. Okay, so you know my cousin Jake works at Julia's firm, right? He's in accounting, keeps to himself, but he goes to the same gym as some of the marketing guys. I felt my stomach drop somewhere around my shoes. Noah, if you're about to tell me something I don't want to hear, you need to hear this, man. Jake was at the gym yesterday, doing his usual treadmill thing, when he overhears Adrian bragging to some other douchebag about his late-night partner. And get this, he's not even trying to be subtle about it. He's talking about hotel receipts, talking about how gullible some husbands are, talking about. Stop. I set down my coffee cup before I threw it across the lobby. Just stop for a second. But Noah was on a roll, and apparently, he'd been saving this information like ammunition for exactly this moment. Marcus, there's more. Jake started paying attention after that, and these guys have been talking about you. About you specifically. Adrian's been calling you the clueless husband in group chats. There are screenshots, man. Screenshots of him mocking you for being too trusting. The hotel lobby started spinning slightly. All those nights I'd convinced myself I was being paranoid, that I was the problem, that I needed to trust my wife more. Turns out I was the punchline of some corporate asshole's joke. The faithful husband who heated up dinner while his wife was getting her back blown out by her boss. Send them to me. Marcus, send me the screenshots, Noah. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with a series of images that felt like getting punched in the soul. Group chat messages between Adrian and what looked like half the marketing department, complete with laughing crying emojis and commentary that made my skin crawl. Another late night with the married one faced with tears of joy. Does her husband actually believe the overtime story? Guy's either the most trusting man alive or the dumbest. Either way, works for me, man shrugging. Hotel receipts are tax deductible if it's for client meetings, right? Winking face. Poor bastard probably thinks she's employee of the month material. There were dozens of messages spanning weeks. Detailed jokes about my marriage, speculation about how long it would take me to figure it out, even a betting pool on whether I'd ever grow a spine and leave her. Adrian had turned my personal life into office entertainment, and apparently, everyone was having a blast watching the show. The worst part? Julia wasn't just a passive participant in this humiliation. There were screenshots of her messages too, complaining about having to keep up appearances at home, joking about how I was getting suspicious, but was too nice to actually do anything about it. Marcus is asking questions about why I'm working so late. Might need to dial it back for a week or two. He wanted to go to dinner tonight, face with rolling eyes, had to pretend I cared about his day for 20 minutes before I could leave. Adrian says the Johnson account excuse is getting old. Need new material for why I can't be home before midnight. My wife, the woman I'd been married to for 4 years, the woman I'd turned down life-changing career opportunities for, had been treating our marriage like an inconvenient obstacle to her extracurricular activities. I wasn't even a person to her anymore. I was just Marcus, the annoying husband who asked too many questions and wanted too much attention. I forwarded all the screenshots to Julia with a single word, interesting. Then I turned off my phone and sat in that lobby for 2 hours, watching families check out with their luggage and their weekend plans, wondering how the hell I'd become such a joke. 4 years of marriage, and I'd been living in a sitcom where I was the bumbling husband who didn't know his wife was screwing around. Except it wasn't funny, and I was the only one who didn't know the punchline. When I finally turned my phone back on, I had 17 missed calls from Julia and about 30 text messages that started apologetic and rapidly devolved into full-scale panic. Where did you get those messages? You're taking them out of context. Adrian was just joking around. You know how guys talk. Those messages don't mean anything. You can't trust Jake. He's always been jealous of Adrian. This is invasion of privacy. You had no right to get those screenshots. I never said anything bad about you. Those messages are fake. Marcus, call me back. I'm coming to the hotel. Which hotel are you at? You can't just ignore me. I'm your wife. Adrian is nothing to me. It was just a mistake. Please don't leave me over some stupid office gossip. I love you. Doesn't that mean anything? Fine. Ignore me. But you're destroying our marriage over lies. I can't believe you're choosing strangers over your own wife. You're having a mental breakdown and you need help. This is emotional abuse. You're punishing me for having a career. The progression from panic to anger to desperation to blame was almost impressive. She'd managed to hit every stage of getting caught in a lie, complete with gaslighting and victim blaming. Classic cheater's playbook, executed with the precision of someone who'd probably been practicing these responses in case this day ever came. I deleted all the messages without responding. Let her panic. Let her wonder. Let her experience even a fraction of the uncertainty and confusion she'd been putting me through for months. My phone rang again. Julia's ringtone, the one I'd thought was cute when we were dating, now sounded like nails on a chalkboard. I sent it straight to voicemail and started packing my stuff. I had a flight to New York tomorrow, and I wasn't about to miss it for any more of Julia's creative explanations about why betraying your spouse was actually a sign of career ambition. Some bridges deserve to be burned. Sunday morning, the day of my flight to New York, I was finishing up my last-minute packing when the sound of aggressive door pounding shattered the peaceful silence of my hotel room. Not knocking, pounding. The kind of rhythmic hammering that suggested someone was either having a medical emergency or was about to star in their own episode of When Wives Attack. I already knew who it was before I opened the door. What I didn't expect was the full delegation. Julia stood front and center looking like she hadn't slept in 3 days, flanked by her mother Linda, a woman who'd never met a boundary she couldn't cross, and her sister Brooke, who had apparently been recruited as backup moral support for this little intervention. Marcus Anthony Coleman, Linda announced, using my full name like I was 10 years old and had been caught stealing cookies. We need to talk. Right now. They pushed past me into the hotel room without waiting for an invitation, which was pretty much standard operating procedure for Linda. The woman had all the subtlety of a bulldozer wearing lipstick and had never encountered a family crisis she couldn't make worse by getting involved. Nice to see you too, Linda. Brooke. I closed the door and turned to face what was clearly going to be an ambush disguised as a concerned family meeting. Julia looked terrible, which gave me a weird sense of satisfaction I probably shouldn't admit to. Her hair was unwashed, her makeup was smudged, and she was wearing the same clothes from Friday night, which meant she'd probably been camped out at her mother's place having a 36-hour meltdown about how her perfect little side piece situation had exploded in her face. Marcus. Brooke started, using her therapist voice. She was getting her master's in psychology, which apparently made her the family expert on everyone else's mental health. Julia told us you're having some kind of breakdown. Quitting your life and running away to New York isn't a normal response to marital stress. Marital stress. I almost laughed. Is that what we're calling it? Linda jumped in before I could elaborate. Young man, Julia explained everything. She's been working hard to advance her career, and instead of supporting her like a good husband should, you've been spying on her and making wild accusations. Now you're abandoning your marriage over some paranoid fantasy. Paranoid fantasy? I pulled out my phone, found the screenshots Noah had sent me, and held it up. Would you like to see the group chat where Julia's boss calls me the clueless husband while bragging about hotel receipts with my wife? The room went dead silent. Linda's mouth actually dropped open, which was the first time in 20 years I'd seen her speechless. Brooke looked like someone had just explained that everything she thought she knew about physics was wrong. Julia, meanwhile, went through about 15 different facial expressions in the span of 3 seconds before settling on righteous indignation. Those messages are taken out of context. Adrian was just what, Julia? Just joking around about screwing another man's wife? Just having a laugh about how gullible I am while you two were playing house on company time? I scrolled through the screenshots, reading aloud some of the choicest quotes. Linda's face got paler with each message, and Brooke kept glancing between me and Julia like she was watching a tennis match where someone was about to get beheaded. Poor bastard probably thinks she's employee of the month material, I read. Guy's either the most trusting man alive or the dumbest. Either way, works for me. Real professional relationship you've got there, Julia. Marcus, stop, Brooke said quietly. This is what, Brooke? Hard to hear? Uncomfortable? Yeah. Imagine how I felt living it while everyone I knew was giving me pity looks and trying to figure out how to tell me my marriage was a joke. Linda had finally found her voice again. Julia Marie, what in the hell is this? She was using her daughter's full name now, which meant someone was about to get the lecture of their life. Julia's defense strategy was predictable. Deflect, minimize, blame everyone else. Mom, those messages don't mean what Marcus thinks they mean. Adrian has a twisted sense of humor, and the guys at work are immature. I never did anything wrong. Never did anything wrong. I pulled up another screenshot. Here's one where you complain about having to keep up appearances at home. Here's another where you joke about me being too nice to actually leave you. What exactly do you call that, Julia? I was venting. Everyone vents about their marriage sometimes. To their boss? The same boss you've been spending every evening with for 3 months? The same boss who's apparently been collecting hotel receipts for your client meetings? Brooke was shaking her head like she couldn't process what she was hearing. Julia, please tell me you didn't actually. I didn't do anything. Julia exploded. God, you're all acting like I committed murder. So what if Adrian and I got close? So what if we spent time together outside of work? That doesn't mean anything happened. Nothing happened. I scrolled to another screenshot. Here's Adrian talking about how the married one gives the best presentations after midnight. Here's him making jokes about soundproofing hotel rooms. What kind of client meetings require soundproofing, Julia? The silence that followed was deafening. Linda looked like someone had told her that her retirement fund had been invested in Monopoly money. Brooke was staring at her sister with the expression of someone who'd just discovered their childhood hero was actually a serial killer. Julia tried one last desperate play. This is emotional abuse. You're ganging up on me, humiliating me with private messages that were stolen from my workplace. I could probably sue Jake for this. Sue Jake. I laughed, and it came out bitter as black coffee. Julia, the only person who humiliated you is you. These aren't private love letters that got hacked. These are your boss and coworkers making fun of your marriage in a group chat. You turned our relationship into office entertainment. Linda finally spoke, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Julia, honey, is this true? Have you been with this man? Mom, it's complicated. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work, the expectations. It's a yes or no question, I interrupted. Did you or didn't you sleep with Adrian? Julia's face crumpled. Not in a sad way, in a defeated way. The way people look when they realize their elaborate house of cards has finally collapsed, and there's no point in pretending the pile of cardboard was ever a real building. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she whispered. And there it was. Not an admission, exactly, but close enough. Linda sat down heavily on the hotel room's single chair. Brooke covered her face with her hands, and Julia started crying. Real tears this time. not the manipulative ones she'd been using for 3 days. I have a flight to catch, I said, zipping up my carry-on bag. My new life starts in about 4 hours, and I'm not missing it for any more of this drama. I handed Brooke the screenshots. Here, show these to whoever needs to see them. I'm done being the bad guy in my own marriage. As I walked toward the door, Linda called out one last time. Marcus, what do you want us to tell people? Tell them the truth, Linda. For once in this whole mess, just tell the truth. Landing at JFK felt like stepping through a portal into a parallel universe where I wasn't the punchline of my own life story. The moment I walked off that plane, breathing in air that didn't smell like broken dreams and other people's cologne, I knew I'd made the right choice. Hell, I should have made this choice months ago, but better late than never, right? The company car was waiting, an actual black sedan with my name on a placard, like I was some kind of executive instead of a guy who'd spent the last 72 hours discovering that his marriage was basically a reality TV show where everyone knew the plot twist except him. The driver, a cheerful Puerto Rican guy named Miguel, spent the ride into Manhattan giving me the unofficial tour. First time in the city? First time living here. I visited, but this is different. Yeah, man, it's always different when you're staying. You running towards something or away from something? I laughed, surprised by his directness. Little bit of both, I guess. Best kind of move. Fresh starts are good for the soul, you know? Miguel was right. As we crawled through the Lincoln Tunnel and emerged into the chaos of Midtown, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Excitement about my future. Not anxiety, not dread, not that sinking feeling of watching my life spiral down the drain while I stood there with a plunger. Actual honest-to-God excitement. The apartment was on the Upper West Side, 15 floors up with a view of Central Park that made my old place look like a closet with delusions of grandeur. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern kitchen, enough space to actually think without bumping into reminders of my failed marriage. It was furnished with that corporate housing aesthetic, clean, professional, and completely devoid of personality, which was exactly what I needed. I stood at those windows for 20 minutes, watching joggers and dog walkers navigate the park paths below, and realized this was the first time in months I'd looked at something without wondering what Julia was doing, where she was, or who she was with. The constant background anxiety that had become my normal had just evaporated. My phone buzzed with yet another text from Julia. She was up to about 50 unread messages at this point, but I didn't even glance at it. Whatever crisis she was manufacturing back home was no longer my problem to solve. Monday morning came with a wake-up call I'd almost forgotten existed. Genuine enthusiasm for work. I'd been going through the motions at my old job for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to actually give a damn about what I was doing. Harold had set up meetings with the entire regional team, and walking into that conference room felt like stepping into the major leagues. The team was sharp, motivated, and refreshingly drama-free. No one was sleeping with anyone else's spouse. No one was using group chats to mock their colleagues' personal lives, and everybody seemed to understand that working late meant actually working, not using the office as a cover story for extracurricular activities. Sarah, the marketing director, gave me the rundown on our biggest accounts. Mike from operations explained the logistics challenges we were facing. Jennifer from finance walked me through the budget projections that made my old salary look like pocket change. These were professionals who treated their careers like careers, not like elaborate schemes to justify infidelity. So what brought you to New York? Sarah asked during lunch. We were at some trendy place near the office where the sandwiches cost more than I used to spend on groceries. But the company was picking up the tab, so I was living large. Better opportunity, I said, which was true without being the whole truth. Sometimes you need a change of scenery to remember who you are. I get that. I moved here from Chicago 5 years ago. Best decision I ever made. There's something about this city that forces you to level up, you know? She was right. In the weeks since I'd arrived, I'd already started changing. Walking faster, thinking bigger, carrying myself like someone who belonged in rooms where important decisions got made. The version of Marcus who'd spent months heating up dinner alone while his wife screwed her boss felt like a character from someone else's life. Meanwhile, back in my old hometown, the fallout was apparently reaching nuclear levels. I'd been getting updates from Noah, who seemed to be enjoying the drama more than anyone should. Dude, Julia's life is imploding in real time, he told me during one of our check-in calls. She tried to go back to work Monday, but word about the screenshots had spread through the office like wildfire. Apparently, Adrian's wife found out too. Someone sent her copies of everything. His wife. Oh yeah, forgot to mention that. Adrian's married with 2 kids. His wife is some kind of lawyer, and from what I hear, she's not taking this development well. There are rumors about divorce papers and asset freezing and all kinds of legal nastiness. The irony was beautiful. Adrian, the smooth-talking boss who'd been using my marriage as entertainment, was about to discover what happens when your own spouse finds out you're a cheating piece of garbage. Julia, who'd thought she was trading up from her boring husband to some kind of corporate prince, had actually hitched her wagon to a married father who was about to lose everything in what sounded like a very expensive divorce. What about Julia? She's been staying with her mom, but Linda's apparently not thriving with the arrangement. Brooke told my cousin that there have been some epic screaming matches about responsibility and consequences and how Julia brought shame on the family. Very old-school Catholic guilt trip stuff. I should have felt bad for her. For years of marriage should have bought her some sympathy from me, even after everything. But all I felt was a distant sort of relief, like watching a car accident in your rearview mirror and realizing you'd gotten out of the way just in time. The city was working its magic on me. I was sleeping better, eating better, exercising regularly for the first time in years. I joined a gym near the office, started exploring different neighborhoods on weekends, even began thinking about what kind of person I wanted to be now that I wasn't defined by someone else's betrayal. 3 weeks in, Harold flew up from the home office to check on my progress. "You look different," he said as we sat in his hotel bar, sharing what he called a celebration drink for my successful transition. "Different how?" "Lighter. Like you're not carrying around someone else's problems anymore." "That's probably because I'm not." "Good. I was worried about you for a while there." Watching someone with your potential sabotage himself over a relationship that wasn't working was painful. It wasn't that it wasn't working, I corrected him. It was that only one of us was actually in the relationship. Hard to make something work when you're the only one trying. Harold raised his glass. "To new beginnings and better choices." "I'll drink to that." For the first time in months, I meant it. 2 months into my New York renaissance, I was having the kind of Tuesday that made me question why I'd ever lived anywhere else. Closed a major deal with a client in Tribeca, grabbed lunch at a place where celebrities casually ate salads next to normal humans, and was walking back to the office feeling like I'd finally figured out this whole successful adult thing when I spotted her. Julia, standing outside my office building like some kind of ghost from my past. Except ghosts usually have the decency to stay dead instead of showing up uninvited in your new life. She looked rough. That was the kindest way to put it. The polished, magazine cover version of Julia who used to spend 2 hours getting ready for her work meetings had been replaced by someone who looked like she'd been sleeping in her car and using gas station bathrooms for primping. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes were wrinkled, and she had that desperate energy that people get when their carefully constructed world collapses and they're scrambling to find someone to blame. "Marcus, we need to talk." "No, hello." "No, how are you?" No acknowledgement that showing up at someone's workplace unannounced after they've moved across the country to get away from you might be considered slightly psychotic behavior. Just straight to the demands, because apparently 4 years of marriage hadn't taught her anything about basic human courtesy. "Julia, what the hell are you doing here?" "I flew up this morning. We need to talk about us, about our marriage, about what we're throwing away." "Us? Our marriage? What we're throwing away?" The audacity was almost impressive. She was talking like this was some mutual decision we'd made together, instead of the natural consequence of her spending 3 months screwing her boss while turning my personal life into office entertainment. "There is no us, Julia. There is no our marriage. You made sure of that when you decided Adrian was more interesting than your husband." She looked around nervously, probably realizing that having this conversation on a busy Manhattan sidewalk wasn't her smartest move. "Can we go somewhere private? There are things I need to explain, things you don't understand about what really happened." Against every instinct screaming at me to walk away, I agreed to coffee. Not because I wanted to hear her explanations. I'd seen enough screenshots to know exactly what had happened, but because some masochistic part of me was curious to see how she planned to spin this disaster into something that wasn't entirely her fault. We went to a Starbucks 2 blocks away, The kind of anonymous corporate space where you could have life-altering conversations surrounded by people who didn't give a shit about your drama. Julia ordered some complicated drink with extra shots and alternative milk, because apparently, even in the middle of her personal apocalypse, she couldn't just get a regular coffee like a normal human being. Marcus, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. But it wasn't what you think it was. Really? Because what I think is that you spent 3 months having an affair with your married boss, while making me look like an idiot to everyone we know. Which part of that is incorrect? She flinched like I'd slapped her, which was rich considering she'd spent weeks emotionally bludgeoning me with lies and manipulation. Adrian and I, it was complicated. He was my mentor, and he made me feel important, like my ideas mattered. You were always so busy with your own stuff, and I felt invisible in our marriage. My own stuff? You mean like the job I was considering leaving for a massive promotion that you convinced me to turn down twice? That stuff. I didn't know about New York until. You didn't know because you never asked. You were too busy planning your next late-night strategy session to give a damn about my career or my life or anything that didn't revolve around you and Adrian's twisted little office romance. She started crying then, the kind of calculated tears that she'd always used when she wanted to end an argument without actually addressing the issues. Manipulation disguised as vulnerability, emotional blackmail wrapped up in victim cosplay. I thought you'd always forgive me, she whispered. I thought you were too passive to ever actually leave. I took you for granted, and I know that was wrong. But people make mistakes, Marcus. For years of marriage has to count for something. There it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for 2 months. She'd been counting on my passivity, banking on the fact that I'd be too weak or too loyal or too stupid to call her on her bullshit. I'd been her safety net while she explored other options, the reliable backup plan she could return to when her exciting affair inevitably imploded. You're right, Julia. People do make mistakes. But what you did wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. You chose Adrian over me, every single night for 3 months. You chose to lie to me, to humiliate me, to treat our marriage like an inconvenience you had to work around. But I choose you now. I'm here, aren't I? I'm trying to fix this. You're here because Adrian dumped you when his wife found out, and his life started falling apart. You're here because your backup plan moved to New York and you're scrambling to find someone to pay your bills and stroke your ego. This isn't about choosing me. This is about damage control. She was full-on sobbing now, attracting stares from other customers who were probably wondering if they should call security or just enjoy the free entertainment. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her, no residual love trying to convince me to give her another chance. What if I'm pregnant? She blurted out, playing what she clearly thought was her trump card. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the middle of Starbucks while my soon-to-be ex-wife claimed to be carrying my child. The absurdity was too much to handle with any kind of dignity. Julia, we haven't had sex in 2 months. And before that, it was maybe once every few weeks when you weren't too tired from your work commitments. If you're pregnant, congratulations. It's either the second coming of Christ or Adrian's problem. Her face crumpled, and I realized she'd just admitted to lying about something that could have changed my entire life. Even in her desperation, she couldn't resist trying to manipulate me with fake emergencies and manufactured crises. I needed you to care. I needed you to fight for me. I did care, Julia. For 4 years, I cared more about your happiness than my own success, more about your comfort than my own career, more about saving our marriage than saving my dignity. I cared right up until the moment I realized you'd never cared about me at all. I stood up, leaving her crying into her overpriced latte like the star of her own tragic drama. Enjoy New York, Julia. Try not to sleep with any married guys while you're here. Walking away from that coffee shop felt like closing the final chapter of the worst book I'd ever read. I had a life to get back to, a real life with actual opportunities and genuine relationships with people who didn't think loyalty was a character flaw. Julia could keep the drama. I was done being part of the cast. Life has a twisted sense of humor, and nowhere was that more apparent than in the cosmic comedy that unfolded over the next few months. While I was building my new life in Manhattan, better apartment, better job, better everything, Adrian's world was crashing down like a house of cards in a hurricane. And honestly, I had front row seats to the most satisfying shit show I'd ever witnessed. The first sign that karma was sharpening her claws came about 3 weeks after Julia's pathetic coffee shop ambush. I was at a networking event in Midtown, the kind of corporate mixer where people in expensive suits drink overpriced wine and pretend to care about each other's quarterly projections. I was actually enjoying myself. Shocking, I know, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Marcus Coleman? Jesus, what are the odds? I turned around to find myself face to face with Tony Ricci, a guy I'd known back in college who'd somehow become a hotshot marketing executive. We'd kept in loose touch over the years, the kind of LinkedIn connection that exists purely for professional networking and the occasional happy birthday message. Tony, what brings you to the big city? Just transferred here from Chicago. Got offered a position I couldn't refuse. He grinned and took a sip of his wine. Actually, funny story, I'm working for the same company your ex-wife does. Well, did. It's a small world, right? My blood went cold. Did? Oh man, you don't know? Julia got canned about 2 weeks ago. Whole thing was a disaster. Apparently, she was having an affair with some executive, and when his wife found out, she went nuclear. Hired a private investigator, got evidence of company resources being used for personal activities. Hotel rooms charged to corporate accounts, that kind of thing. The wine in my glass suddenly tasted like victory with hints of cosmic justice. The guy, Adrian something, got transferred here to New York, but his reputation followed him like a bad smell. Word travels fast in this industry, and apparently, everyone knows he's the boss who sleeps with his employees. Not exactly the kind of guy you want leading your team, you know? I nearly choked on my drink. Adrian's here? In New York? Yeah, started about a month ago. Poor bastard thought a change of scenery would help, but turns out you can't outrun your own stupidity. His wife cleaned him out in the divorce, took the house, the kids, half his 401k, and enough alimony to fund a small country. Guy went from corner office to studio apartment real quick. The universe was apparently running a special on poetic justice, and Adrian was getting the full package deal. Over the next few weeks, I started hearing Adrian's name pop up in the most delightful contexts. New York's marketing scene was smaller then. People realized, and Adrian's reputation had preceded him like a warning label on toxic waste. At industry mixers, people would literally turn away when he approached. At business lunches, conversations would die when he walked by. The man had become a professional pariah, and he'd earned every bit of it. The best part? He was working for a mid-tier agency now, nothing like the prestigious firm he'd left behind. His new position was basically a lateral move disguised as a demotion, and from what I heard through the grapevine, his new colleagues treated him like he had a contagious disease. Nobody wanted to be associated with the guy who destroyed his marriage and career for some employee's wife. Melissa, Adrian's ex-wife, had gone full scorched earth during their divorce proceedings. She'd not only taken him to the cleaners financially, but had also made sure everyone in their social circle knew exactly why their marriage had ended. Screenshots of his group chat messages had somehow found their way to school parent groups, country club committees, and professional associations. The man couldn't grab coffee without running into someone who knew he was a cheating douchebag. But the real cherry on top of this Karma Sunday came at a charity auction in Soho about 4 months after my coffee encounter with Julia. I was there representing my company, bidding on some art for the office and generally enjoying the kind of high-end networking event that came with my new position. The crowd was the usual mix of corporate executives, tech entrepreneurs, and people who had more money than sense. I was examining a sculpture that probably cost more than my old annual salary when I felt someone approach from behind. I turned around, and there he was, Adrian Martinez, looking like someone had put him through a blender set to life lessons. Gone was the polished executive who'd once bragged about hotel receipts in group chats. This version of Adrian looked tired, desperate, and about 10 years older than his actual age. His suit was nice, but not expensive. His confidence was nowhere to be found, and he had that defeated posture that comes with being professionally and personally destroyed. Marcus, he said, and I could hear the forced casualness in his voice. I didn't expect to see you here. Adrian, how's New York treating you? His smile was about as convincing as a $3 bill. Can't complain. New city, new opportunities, you know how it is. Oh, I know exactly how it is. Fresh starts are amazing when you actually deserve them. He flinched, and I realized he knew that I knew everything. The screenshots, the group chats, the hotel receipts, the whole sordid mess that had turned his life into a cautionary tale about workplace affairs. Look, Marcus, about what happened back home. What about it? I think there were some misunderstandings, some things that got blown out of proportion. Maybe we could grab a drink sometime, clear the air? The audacity was breathtaking. This guy had spent months mocking me in group chats, bragging about screwing my wife, and turning my marriage into office entertainment. And now he wanted to grab drinks and clear the air like we were old buddies who'd had some minor disagreement about sports teams. You know what, Adrian? I think the air is pretty clear already. Crystal clear, actually. Come on, man. We're both professionals. No reason we can't bury the hatchet and move forward. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw exactly what he was. A middle-aged man who destroyed his own life for a few months of excitement and was now desperately trying to convince himself that his catastrophic choices were somehow everyone else's fault. You're right, I said. There's no reason we can't move forward. The difference is, I already have. You buried yourself, Adrian. I don't need to bury anything. His face went pale, and I could see the exact moment he realized that I wasn't going to help him rehabilitate his image or pretend his actions hadn't destroyed multiple lives. I walked away, leaving him standing there with his fake smile and his desperate networking attempts. Watching Adrian's fall hadn't been the goal. It had just been a pleasant side effect of choosing myself over a toxic situation. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well while your enemies destroy themselves. 6 months into my New York chapter, I was living the kind of life that people write motivational Instagram posts about. Corner office with a view of the Hudson, bank account that didn't give me anxiety attacks, and a social calendar that didn't revolve around wondering where my spouse was spending the night. But the real victory wasn't the professional success or the financial security. It was waking up every morning without that knot of dread in my stomach that had been my constant companion during the final months of my marriage. The updates from my old life came through Noah, who'd apparently appointed himself as my personal war correspondent for the ongoing disaster that was Julia's existence. And let me tell you, the reports were more entertaining than anything Netflix had to offer. Dude, you're not going to believe this latest development, Noah said during one of our weekly check-ins. Julia's dating her personal trainer now. Of course she is. Let me guess. He's got abs you could wash laundry on and the emotional intelligence of a golden retriever. Bingo. Guy's name is Chad, because of course it is, and he's exactly the kind of meathead who thinks protein powder is a food group. But here's the kicker. He's already cheating on her. The irony was so perfect it almost hurt. Julia, who destroyed her marriage by cheating with her boss, was now getting cheated on by a guy whose idea of intellectual conversation probably involved comparing pre-workout supplements. Karma wasn't just knocking on her door. It had kicked the door down and was redecorating the entire house. She caught him with some Instagram influencer who does those fitness videos in bikinis. Apparently, Julia walked into the gym unannounced and found them in a very non-professional training session. The meltdown was legendary, screaming, throwing weights, threatening to sue the gym for emotional trauma. They banned her for life. I should have felt some sympathy for her. For years of marriage should have earned her at least a moment of pity when her new relationship imploded the same way ours had. But all I felt was a distant sense of cosmic balance being restored. The financial karma was even better. Turns out, Julia's little tax evasion scheme. Keeping her parents' address to claim benefits she wasn't entitled to had finally caught up with her. The IRS doesn't have a sense of humor about fraud, even the small-scale variety, and they'd hit her with penalties and back taxes that wiped out what little savings she'd managed to accumulate. She had to move back in with Linda and Brooke, Noah continued. 3 grown women in a 2-bedroom apartment, and from what I hear, it's about as peaceful as a cage fight between rabid badgers. Linda's been giving her the guilt trip of the century about bringing shame on the family, and Brooke's been playing amateur therapist, trying to get Julia to acknowledge her destructive patterns. The mental image of Julia, the woman who'd once complained about our apartment being too small, crammed into her childhood bedroom while her mother lectured her about responsibility and consequences, was almost too good to be true. But the real plot twist came a month later, when Brooke reached out to me directly. Marcus, I know you probably don't want to hear from any of us, but I thought you should know that Julia's been asking about you. She says she's in therapy now, working on herself, and she's sorry for everything that happened. That's great for her, Brooke. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for. She was wondering if maybe, once she gets her life together, you might consider. No. You don't even know what I was going to ask. Yes, I do. And the answer is no. To all of it. Julia burned that bridge, salted the earth, and then nuked the entire landscape. There's no going back, no second chances, no working things out. I'm done. Brooke was quiet for a moment. She really is different now. The therapy seems to be helping, and she's starting to understand how badly she hurt you. Good for her. Personal growth is important. But it doesn't undo 4 years of taking me for granted, 3 months of cheating, and weeks of lying to my face while her boss made jokes about my marriage. I'm glad she's getting help, but her healing journey doesn't include me. That conversation was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. For months, I'd been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Julia to find some new way to disrupt my peace or drag me back into her drama. But hearing myself say those words out loud, hearing how final and certain they sounded, made me realize I was truly done. Not angry done or hurt done, but actually, completely, peacefully done. My 6-month performance review came with another raise and the offer to make my New York position permanent. Harold flew up from the home office to deliver the news personally, and we celebrated at a steakhouse that probably cost more per meal than I used to spend on groceries in a week. You know, Marcus, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never seen someone bounce back from a personal crisis the way you have. Most people would still be wallowing in self-pity or trying to win their ex back. You just moved on. Sometimes the best thing you can do is cut your losses and bet on yourself instead of waiting for other people to figure out your worth. Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The company's taking notice, and there are bigger opportunities coming down the pipeline. But the biggest opportunity hadn't come from work. It had come from the most unexpected place of all. 3 weeks earlier, I'd met Leah at a bookstore in Brooklyn. She was an editor at a small publishing house, had a laugh that made me forget my own name, and possessed the revolutionary quality of being exactly who she claimed to be. Our first date was coffee that turned into dinner that turned into a 6-hour conversation about everything and nothing. Our second date was a comedy show in the village where she laughed at my terrible jokes and made better ones of her own. By the third date, I realized I'd forgotten what it felt like to be with someone who actually wanted to be there. Leah didn't work late with mysterious bosses. She didn't have secret group chats where she mocked my existence. She didn't treat our relationship like an inconvenience to be managed around her real priorities. She was just present, honest, real. You know what I like about you? She said one evening as we walked through Central Park, the same park I could see from my apartment windows. My devastating good looks and humble personality? Your peace. You've got this calm confidence, like you know who you are and you're comfortable with it. It's attractive as hell. Peace. That wasn't a word anyone would have used to describe me a year ago. A year ago, I was the guy who heated up dinner alone while his wife screwed her boss. The guy who turned down life-changing opportunities to accommodate someone else's lies. The guy who was so afraid of being alone that he stayed in a relationship that was slowly killing him from the inside. Standing there in Central Park with Leah, looking up at the skyline of a city that had given me back my life, I realized that Julia had been right about one thing. If I couldn't trust her working late with her boss, we shouldn't have been together. She was absolutely right. And choosing myself had been the best decision I'd ever made.